Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. I've already cleared Naruto, but you let me travel through Douluo. Chapter 81. Huo, it is indeed the Spirit City, the holy land of mainland spirit masters, it's just different. Next to Yu Shaogang, the curly-haired young man wearing glasses looked at the rows of buildings around him and shouted from time to time. Flanders, can you stop acting like you've never seen the world? The last one among the three, the red-haired and high-ponytailed sister Yu said sarcastically. She folded her arms, and the fruit on her chest was squeezed into a round shape, unwilling to be lonely, revealing a piece of white greasy from the prismatic hollow space on her chest. Besides, I think it's just average. Is it worth it for us to come all the way here? Still, her eyes suddenly became dangerous, and there seemed to be fire all over her body. Are you doing it for that woman? The air suddenly became solid, and the bodies of Yu Shaogang and Flanders trembled at the same time. Ha ha ha, Erlong, how is it possible, you know? Yu Shaogang's face showed a spring-like smile, and coupled with his gentle appearance, he had a unique temperament. He looked at Lu Erlong affectionately and said softly, "My love has always been you, and everything else is just passing by." Those gentle eyes were almost melting the latter. I knew it. Lu Erlong couldn't help but throw himself into his arms. He didn't look violent at all, but looked like a little woman with happiness. In addition to having a higher status than me, what else does that woman have? Are you right, my dear? Yu Shaogang, are you a little too confident? What do you compare with others? Compared to appearance and figure, she is the most beautiful woman in mainland China. Compared with talent and strength, he was born with full soul power and also had twin martial souls. Not to mention his status, as the most talkative person in Wuhun Palace, the continent's largest force, even the emperors of the two great empires of Tiando, Star and Luo must be respectful when meeting him. Although he didn't want to admit it, Yu Shaogang himself was still very smart. He was lucky to have had the opportunity to participate in that kind of plan back then. But these words must never be said. The corner of his mouth twitched, but he still ignored his conscience and managed to squeeze out a, "Yes. You're the best, honey." Lu Erlong cheered and hugged Yu Shaogang tightly, leaning into his arms sweetly. Flanders on the side looked at the snacks he just bought in his hand, and then looked at the two loving people, and suddenly felt that the candy in his mouth was bitter. Well, he sighed quietly and turned away, not looking at this heartbreaking scene. But neither Flanders nor Lu Erlong noticed that Yu Shaogang hugged her, but his eyes unconsciously looked at the looming majestic hull in the clouds. His gentle face just now was full of unwillingness and gloom. A passing cloud, how is it possible? During the time he was with Bibi Dong, he received unimaginable benefits and respect. It seems that he is not a useless person, but an extremely noble master. Master, the first person in martial arts theory, these auras enveloped Yu Shaogang's body, making him get carried away, forgetful, and even subconsciously ignored it. There is only one premise for these halos. The boyfriend of the Saint of Wuhun Palace. After losing this premise, he went from a respected master to a laughingstock overnight. The identity that he had almost forgotten returned again. A useless person who can never break through level 30. But that doesn't matter now. A confident smile appeared on Yu Shaogang's lips. He is now one of the famous Golden Iron Triangle, and he is the core of it, the corner of wisdom. The combination of three people can even exert a fighting power comparable to that of a titled Douluo. And this is all earned by relying on one's own ability. He wanted to prove to that woman that even without that halo, he could still become a strong man in the mainland. At the same time, there is also a trace of fantasy. Now that I am so powerful, is it possible for Bibi Dong to have feelings for me in the past? Ahem, forgive myself. If the time comes to renew our relationship. Yu Shaogang suddenly became short of breath and wished he could rush to the spirit hall right now. He even thought of the reason and the expression to use. It was all forced by my grandpa, and everything was forced. In fact, after so many years, Shaogang, Shaogang, Shaogang. Lu Erlong's angry shout awakened the young man from his fantasy. He wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth without leaving a trace, coughed dryly, and put a warm smile on his face again. What's wrong, Erlong? Lu Erlong, who wanted to ask him what he was thinking, saw this expression and immediately became obsessed with it. His face turned red and he said, "Nothing, I just want to find a place to stay." We have been traveling for so many days. I think have a good rest and take a shower or something. Yeah, the game starts in 1 day. Flanders also nodded. He clenched his fists and adjusted his glasses excitedly. I'm going to study in other colleges. When my Shrek opens, I must become the #1 college in the mainland. Yu Xiaogang smiled slightly. Then, I will be a teacher in your college. Okay, it's a deal. Me, I want to be a teacher too. Lu Erlong also said quickly, his eyes full of tenderness of the black-haired young man. No matter where you go, I will follow you. Flanders. What should I do if I suddenly don't want him to come? Anyway, these are the students and forces who will participate in the competition this time. The most important ones are Yu Tianlong, Dai Chengkong and Xiaochen. Are you listening? In the Pope's garden, the blonde girl frowned and narrowed her beautiful eyes, looking at the silver-haired boy in front of her who was wandering in the world. Ah, I'm listening. Su Chen woke up belatedly, nodded, and then turned into that dull look again. Qian Runshui. The girl's forehead was bulging with blue veins, and her pink fists were clenched. She almost couldn't help but punch him in the face. Is this guy a bit too much? I'm leaving, remember to read the information. She threw the information on the table with a snort, stood up and twisted her waist and left the garden. The competition will be the day after tomorrow. As the eldest prince, she has been very busy recently. If she wasn't thinking about a certain stinky guy, how could she have time to come here? Forget it if you don't appreciate it, then you can cry when you get beaten up. The girl thought angrily, but it was just a thought. This guy seems to have become stronger recently. Even if he loses, he won't lose badly. Thinking of this, Qian Runshui's delicate little face showed a trace of worry. It's not what her mother thinks. She has a mysterious trust in Xiaochen that is almost fanatical. It's good enough to win, but it's also gorgeous and fancy. You know, there are several people in this competition that even she herself is not sure of winning. Forget it, let's go back. Isn't that the character of that guy? The girl sighed and turned around to see that the boy who was sitting there just now had disappeared. Only the information she left behind was still being blown by the wind and turned the pages. Su Chen, you. After a moment of silence, the girl's angry shout rang out in the garden. In the underground base, Su Chen sat cross-legged, holding 2 soul bones in his hands, and his whole body was full of restrained aura. A faint milky white energy surrounded him, and 2 soul rings, one purple and one black, were slowly pulsating. He was making an important attempt, or rather, the boy and Tianmeng had been working hard for this attempt for many days. And today was the last step of the deduction in the spiritual world. So, he didn't pay attention to what Qian Runshui said. Brother, are you really going to do this? In the spiritual world, Tianmeng I's silkworm looked anxiously at the boy in front of him who was bathed in energy. A few days ago, Su Chen discussed with it how to change the color of the soul ring to achieve the purpose of concealment. This was not a difficult task for Tianmeng, and the second soul ring was originally the condensation of its power. Not to mention changing it to purple, even changing it to red and gold would not be a problem. Of course, the power in it would not change because of this, and that would only be able to interfere when reaching the realm of God. However, it was completely sufficient to conceal people's eyes and ears. When the boy saw how it changed the color of the spirit ring, he asked a rather strange question. Spiritual power can affect the state of the spirit ring itself. Since it cannot be improved, can it be fused with each other? He said so, and then, before the confused Tianmeng could understand the question, he started a series of attempts with his eyes shining, which he could not understand at all. Until earlier today, Tianmeng I's silkworm finally reacted to what kind of feat the boy was going to perform. Using spiritual power as a bridge, the power of the 2 spirit rings is connected and fused. Fusion ring. This scared Tianmeng enough, and he begged his brother not to die. The spirit ring is the condensation of the energy of the spirit beast. Although it is transformed into the power of the spirit master, each spirit ring is essentially irrelevant and independent. The only point where they intersect is the spirit skill. Gods can increase the age of the spirit ring, because in essence, it is an increase in energy. But to let the power of 2 spirit rings merge and transform with each other is something that even gods cannot do. However, facing this completely unknown field, the boy just smiled slightly. You can use your mental power to change the color of the soul ring, why can't I use my mental power to connect to the power in it? Brother, that is my power transformed, and what is the meaning of doing this? Well, when it comes to me, it is my power. I would rather not use the power that cannot be fully used by me. As for the meaning, you will know later. Leaving this sentence, the boy began a dangerous attempt. Returning from memory to the present, Tianmeng looked at the boy in front of him worriedly, and silently prayed in his heart that his brother would not get into trouble. The boy did not answer its question, or he had no time to care. He was wrapped in violent mental energy, and his mental body kept switching between illusion and solidity. Whenever it was about to collapse, there was always a clear green color that appeared to stabilize it. It was a kind of energy that Tianmeng had never seen before, as clear as a deep spring, as if it was composed of jade green gems born at the beginning. Even if it was just clothes, it could feel extremely comfortable, as if it had returned to the hot spring of its birth, and all the cells and even the soul of the body were baptized by coolness. What is this? Tianmeng was shocked. Whenever it thought that Big Brother was powerful enough, Big Brother would always come up with something completely beyond its cognition. Sorry, Big Brother, I am also worried about you, but... It looked around and saw that Su Chen did not react. It sneaked closer and lay at Su Chen's feet, with its eyes showing a very enjoyable expression. So comfortable. The outside world. Su Chen's clothes were almost completely shattered, and his spiritual energy and chakra were intertwined. The two soul rings kept trembling, and even cracks appeared on them. The energy of the immortal art would appear when it was on the verge of collapse, stabilizing bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, the trembling of the two soul rings slowly stopped. The boy opened his eyes, exhaled lightly, and put on his clothes casually, his black eyes flashing. He closed his eyes and his mental power surged. What was surprising was that the second soul ring of 10,000 years actually slowly faded into purple, and the original first soul ring turned into a deep black. Success. The mutual fusion between the soul rings. Ha 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 ha. The young man laughed loudly, waved his hand to put away the soul ring, and felt particularly excited. A long time ago, he had thought about the idea of fusion ring. After all, the most powerful ninjutsu is not the basic 5 elements escape technique, but the blood limit generated by the combination of chakra attributes, or even blood elimination. But as Tianmeng said, the energy attached to the soul ring is an independent fulcrum that does not interfere with each other, and the only interaction is the soul skill. The increase, strength, and gain of the soul skill can be superimposed. But the attributes of the soul ring are not. Su Chen has tried it before, but most of them have no clue. Compared to the energy of the fairy art, this is more like a castle in the air. It's not a problem of difficulty, but because there is no trace at all. Because it will take some time before the third ring is obtained, he gradually put the plan on hold. And Tianmeng's action of changing the color of the soul ring through mental power inspired him. Can the soul rings be connected through mental power? After all, he was just converting the same amount of energy, not improving it. With the help of the powerful existence of immortal energy, which is almost omnipotent, Su Chen dared to try it. Now, he succeeded. The young man clenched his fists excitedly. Tianmeng was right. For ordinary people, this method only increased the risk for themselves and changed the color of the soul ring. But it was different for Su Chen. After he got the fusion ring, when he got the third ring, he could use the blood limit that was notorious in the ninja world. Wood escape. Thinking of the wood escape ninjutsu that was well known in his mind, Su Chen felt itchy and wanted to hunt for the third ring now. Of course, he was just thinking about it. It was not a safety issue. He could use Flying Thunder God, and Tianmeng was protecting his spiritual world. As long as he was cautious, the probability of death would be greatly reduced. Mainly because this competition was very important to Bibi Dong, involving the affairs of Haoshan sect. As the future son of Wuhun Hall, this was also closely related to Su Chen's interests. Maybe I can take some time to go there during the game. The boy pinched his chin and opened the system panel. Name: Su Chen. Gender: male. Age: 6 years old. Level: Level 28 Great Soul Master. Soul Ring: purple 3000 years, black 10,000 years. Soul Skill: Dragon's Helmet. All attributes increased by 50%, when damaged, life recovery speed increased by 50%, 200%, the lower the vitality, the higher the recovery speed. Soul skill. Spirit detection, spirit sharing, spirit interference, soul shock. Self-created soul skill. Dragon Immortal Mode, a perfect immortal mode created by the masters of the three holy places, all attributes increased by 400% when released, all attacks with immortal damage that cannot be dodged, purified, or blocked, and can release extremely powerful immortal ninjutsu. Self-created soul skills. Ring fusion, break the shackles between soul rings, can be freely fused, and transfer the energy in them. Chakra attributes. None, water, completely master the operation of water elements, can freely release water escape ninjutsu, release water escape ninjutsu with greatly enhanced power, and greatly enhanced affinity for water elements. Life energy. 2700, standard grade soul master 600, 1000. Spiritual energy. 999, spirit sea realm, standard grade soul master is 51 to 100. Soul power chakra 3200, standard grade soul master 900, 1500. External soul bone. Sharingan 3 Magatama greatly improves nerve reaction speed, dynamic detection, can release a large number of illusions with increased power through line of sight add, white eye, perspective, 360 degrees all around detection, 3 kilometers farsightedness. Features. Perfect Sage Body 22%, your self-healing ability is enhanced, physical recovery speed is enhanced, vitality is enhanced, affinity with nature is enhanced, training talent is improved, and the speed of training in Sage mode is improved. The ancestor of pupil techniques, you can use all pupil techniques without restrictions, requiring Mangekyo Sharingan, Eternal Mangekyo, Samsara Eye, Kamui unavailable, Amaterasu unavailable, Tsukuyomi unavailable. Usable skills. Suchin style sword technique, Rasengan, Suchin style shuriken technique, Suchin flow technique, 3 body technique, 8 gates of ninjutsu, 3rd gate illusion Shiranui, water style water dragon. Looking at those data that have been improved a lot, with Su Chen nodded with satisfaction after seeing the 2 newly created soul skills. With the simulated training environment and the double training method, his soul power increased very quickly, and breaking through level 30 was just a matter of time. Maybe before the end of the game, he could make a wooden man to play with. Although he couldn't drive the Susanoo Gundam, it was not impossible to make a wooden man. After putting away the panel, the boy glanced at Tianmeng in the spiritual world, who was bathed in the energy of the fairy art and sleeping soundly. Sleep well, I will take you to find excitement in a few days. Tianmeng, who was sleeping, seemed to have sensed something terrible and shuddered subconsciously. But he soon immersed himself in the addictive feeling again, and didn't realize what he would face in a few days. Wuhan City Academy, in an independent classroom. Su Chen walked in with a thick stack of information and took a breath of cool air from time to time. Hiss. It hurts. He didn't know why that little girl Qian Runshui was so crazy, so he went to ask her for information, but she kicked him first without saying a word. Then he handed him the information and left without saying a word. When did he offend her? Women are trouble. Su Chen was a little puzzled. Shaking his head, the young man put the matter behind him and turned his eyes to the people sitting in rows. Seeing that these boys and girls all dyed their hair back obediently and changed their clothes into the uniforms of Wuhandian Academy, Su Chen nodded with satisfaction. Do you know anything about our opponents this time? He knocked on the table and spread all the information in front of everyone. Before coming, Su Chen also read some information carefully. Some of them surprised him. The novel only describes the perspective of Tang Shenhuang, but for Su Chen, this is a complete world of flesh and blood. 6 years later, Tang Shenhuang will start a legendary journey, leading his followers to set off the hottest wave of geniuses on the continent. Hu Liena, Yu Tianong, and Feng Xiaoshan are all the best besides the Shrek 7 devils. But this does not mean that in this era, there are no trendsetters who are dancing on the wave. Jade Tianlong, Dai Chengkong, Zhu Zuling. These names look familiar but not familiar, but it can also be seen that they are inextricably related to those geniuses a few years later. Perhaps decades later, they will be replaced by latecomers, or they may encounter an accident and disappear from everyone. But in this era, there is no doubt that they are the brightest new stars. Captain, don't worry, Yin Luo's grandfather has already sent the information. We have been studying it for a long time. A girl nodded confidently and looked at the boy with eager eyes. We won't let you down. The elders in the family had long given a death order, that is, to stay by the boy's side at all costs, even if it means being a maid serving tea and water. And the Yin Luo she was talking about was Huang Mao, who was almost scared to death by Su Chen. It was said that he was Mr. Yin's grandson. When Su Chen learned the news, he felt a little embarrassed. He had a good feeling for this stubborn old man, who could be said to be the first person to propose establishing himself as the Son of God, and he had always been a staunch supporter. As a result, he even punished his grandson. Hey, boss. Yin Luo scratched his chicken coop-like hair and smiled shyly, completely different from the arrogant Huang Mao a few days ago. I had no choice but to get a beating at Su Chen's place, and another beating from his own father when he went back. After finishing the matter, his grandfather came home at night and gave him another beating after he found out about it. If his father hadn't stopped him, his mother would have given him a beating. From then on, he fully understood the status of the silver-haired boy in front of him. What, by the way, I recently bought a good thing. It is said to be a college threat list circulated on the black market outside. Captain, you are also on it. Do you want to take a look? He took out a notebook from his arms and handed it to Su Chen. The young man raised his eyebrows, flipped through it a few times, and his dark eyes gradually narrowed. This information can be said to be far less detailed than the information on Wuhun Palace, but it can also be seen that the author has a powerful intelligence system. And Su Chen could sense that the creator of this information definitely knew more than what he revealed, but he just didn't dare to write it out due to pressure. As for the list, it was pretty much what Su Chen predicted, with only a slight difference in the number of people. What a talent! Su Chen's eyes gradually brightened. According to me, the person who made this list is completely blind. He actually ranked my eldest brother in 7th place. It's such a lack of vision. Yin Lui beat the table angrily. The eldest brother should be ranked first. No jade dragon wearing the sky is worthy of carrying the eldest brother's shoes. You think so, brother? He licked his face and came closer, with a flattering expression on his face. The others were dumbfounded. Are you too good at licking? And didn't you scold the principal with us yesterday for being spineless? Today you licked better than him before he even got offline. What's more important is that you're so cursory as a licker. What should we say after everything is said? Okay, don't talk nonsense. Su Chen couldn't help but pushed him away, pointed at the list and said, find a way to find this person, but don't use force. Just contact him and ask him if he is willing to work for me. To be able to give such a high evaluation without knowing anything about oneself is already a very good person. You know, among the top 20, the one with the lowest soul power has exceeded level 43. His level 20 can be said to be quite eye-catching among others. Okay big brother, no problem big brother, I'm the best at this. Yin Luo agreed hastily, as if he was afraid that someone would snatch the task. Thank you very much. Su Chen nodded and looked at the others. So, do you know anything about me? Although his ability is not suitable for team combat, it is still necessary to communicate with teammates. The boys and girls nodded, then shook their heads. They only knew that the man in front of them was very strong and talented, but they didn't know much about the details. The Pope read Su Chen's information very carefully, and even Elder Yin only knew a little about it. Only Ju Douluo and Ghost Douluo, the two people who had been following him, might know more clearly. But Ghost Douluo had been hosting the elite plan outside, and Ju Douluo was busy and nowhere to be seen, so even if they wanted to inquire, they had nowhere to go. To put it simply, my martial soul is a special energy that has an indiscriminate suppression effect on conventional martial souls. Su Chen released chakra, and everyone present suddenly felt a deep sense of fear on the martial soul. At the same time, there are some healing abilities. A chakra energy was drawn out by the boy and thrown into Yin Luo's body. The latter instantly felt his body relax, and the depression immediately disappeared, and at the same time, a warm and comfortable feeling came. I have many ways of attack, so I won't go into details one by one. My defense should not be bad. As for speed, well, this is what I am best at. The boy said, and took back his martial soul. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. You seem to have said everything, but you also seem to have said nothing. And according to this statement, isn't he all-powerful? Suppression, healing, various attack methods, high defense, and speed specialization. Yin Luo swallowed his saliva. Brother, why do I feel that you don't need us? Do people like this really need them? That's not the case. Su Chen shook his head. After all, you can't have a game without all the people. What I mean by saying this is that when fighting, you don't have to care about me at all, and don't let me disrupt your well-trained cooperation. The silver-haired boy looked at them who were a little discouraged and smiled encouragingly. In short, I believe in you. Instructing the group of teenagers and girls who looked like they had been given blood to do the final training, the young man left the school and returned to the base. He still needs to do further research on the fusion ring, and he also needs to continue trying to develop and train the immortal mode. However, because natural energy can currently only be obtained from soul bones, the synthesized magical energy is also quite limited. Every time he opened it, Su Chen felt extremely heartbroken. The training immortal mode is no different from burning gold soul coins, there are hundreds of them every minute. They were all obtained from other places through hard work. If you use one piece, you will lose one piece. But there is nothing we can do about it. Since we have decided to go to the Star Forest on the way, it is better to adapt to this trump card as soon as possible. There is also the Flying Thunder God, which is the key to his survival. Boom! A buzzing explosion sounded in the training base, and the boy entered new training again. At the same time, in Wuhun City Academy, Yin Luo's team was also training hard. In the Tianshui Academy garrison, Chu Ruolian and the girls tried new tactics, and from time to time they took out the ranking list and took a look at it, showing an expression of infatuation. Where the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex was stationed, the long-haired boy laughed arrogantly, and thunderous thunder exploded, shattering everything around him. Yu Tianxin leaned on her face and looked on with envy. In the garrison of the Star Luo Empire, the blonde boy and the black-haired girl looked at each other tenderly and affectionately, their souls blending together. Davis next to him had a look of disdain on his face, but would peek at him from time to time. Zhu Zuyun hugged Davis's arm in envy, but did not push him away despite being disliked by the former. All this happens in the areas of major powers. The trading of information, the sale of soul tools and even soul bones is in full swing, and the torrents and undercurrents are all surging more crazily. And in such a tense atmosphere, the day flew by. There are only a few hours left before the game officially starts. Late at night, Wuhun City. Perhaps tomorrow is the day when the official competition begins, and this city that has been noisy for countless days has finally calmed down a little. Although it was still very lively, it looked a bit like a normal city compared to the previous days. Click. In a hotel in an alley, a sneaky figure gently closed the door, turned sideways and held his breath for a while, listening. Seeing no reaction from the woman inside, he breathed a sigh of relief and tiptoed away. It wasn't until he walked under the streetlight that the figure straightened his back. His face also emerged from the darkness. It was Yu Xiaoging. Yu Xiaoging tidied her hair, smoothed the wrinkles of her new clothes, took pictures of the puddles on the roadside, and nodded contentedly. Donger must have missed him very much when he saw him looking like he looked like more than 10 years ago. Yu Xiaoging couldn't wait to see the unrivaled beauty of the Pope holding him in his arms, and then he could comfort him and talk about the difficulties, and persuade Erlong and Donger to live in peace and embrace each other, and reach the pinnacle of life. Yes, this is the confidence that the name of the Golden Triangle brings to him. When he thought of his happy life in Wuhun Palace, Yu Xiaoging felt like he could wake up from his dreams with a smile. Just as he was walking happily towards the Wuhun Palace, he didn't notice that a pair of red eyes full of hatred were quietly staring at him. What? Not allowed in? Yu Xiaoging stood at the foot of Wuhun Palace Mountain, frowning and looking at the white-clothed deacon in front of him. Do you know who I am? The deacon in white was also depressed because he couldn't go to the competition site for duty. He almost laughed out loud when he heard this. Who are you worshipping? He looked at the black-haired young man in front of him with a half-smile expression on his face. No, then which elder must you be? Not me either. Ah, I see, you must be a high-ranking consul in the papal palace. This should have been counted before. Yu Xiaoging stuttered in embarrassment. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that I really have no official status. Well, you are neither this nor that. Then why should I know who you are? The deacon in white raised his voice a few degrees in vain and pointed to the sign in front. Read the words on it for me. Reception hours 9:00 a.m. 5:00 p.m. Yu Xiaogang, who was startled, read it subconsciously. Then don't you look at what time it is now. Don't others need to rest? The deacon in white glared at Yu Xiaogang fiercely, ignored him, and returned to his seat. Yu Xiaogang. He looked at the sign in confusion. How could he remember that there was no such thing before? Speaking of reception hours, when did Wuhun Palace still have this kind of business? It looks like you are from out of town. It is said that this was His Royal Highness the Sun's idea. It is said that getting close to the people properly can enhance cohesion and affinity. The deacon in white glanced at the dumbfounded Yu Xiaogang, but we don't understand this mysterious thing. We only know that with this rule, we can see the Pope crowning him every day. I didn't know before that our new Pope is such a good person, strong, beautiful, gentle and humble, and even personally guides us mud-legged people on cultivation issues. A longing smile appeared on his face. It's worth dying to serve such a Pope. Wait, what is this and what is it? After hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's brain went haywire. There's nothing wrong with being strong and beautiful, but what about being gentle and humble? Could he not know what kind of personality Bibi Dong has? Also, where did the Son of God come from? How come he didn't know anything about it? It must be that he had been away for too long. Has the spirit hall changed so much? He shook his head, interrupted the white-clothed deacon who was sighing, and said seriously. I am Yu Xiaogang. However, the expected scene of the other party's surprise and respectful release did not appear. Instead, he was greeted with a pair of puzzled eyes. Which Yu Xiaogang is it? The white-clothed deacon thought for a long time but couldn't remember who this was. The first person in the Wuhun world in theory, Master. Yu Xiaogang was immediately anxious. He grabbed the white-clothed deacon. Do you know the wisdom corner in the golden iron triangle? I haven't heard of it. Alas, are you annoying? I told you to come back tomorrow morning and someone will receive you. The white-clothed deacon impatiently shook him off and muttered as he walked away, nowadays, anything can be called a master. The golden iron triangle, and the wisdom corner, how childish. My son doesn't even need such an awkward nickname. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang was like being hit hard. He opened his mouth and suddenly remembered something. He took out a sign from his clothes and took 2 steps forward. Just as he was about to open his mouth, he was grabbed by a hand. There's no need to take out this thing, Mr. Yu. A clear young voice came from behind him. Yu Xiaogang turned back in surprise and saw a pair of boys and girls slowly walking over. The blonde girl was extremely beautiful, and her beautiful eyes looked at Yu Xiaogang with scrutiny. The boy looked a little younger, with silver hair shining in the moonlight and black eyes with a strange smile. I'll take you up. Su Chen never expected that at this time and at this place, he would meet the man who influenced Tang Shenwang's life. Yu Xiaogang. This can be considered a god. Anyway, Su Chen admired him. When he was young, he participated in the plan against Bibi Dong. At that time, as long as he told the truth, Bibi Dong's temperament would definitely give him his all. But what did this one do? Knowing part of the truth, he ran away. Yes, you read that right, he ran away. The reason is that he is afraid that Qin Zunji will kill him. Come on, Qian Zunji is not a fool. If he kills Yu Xiaogang, does he really think Yu Yuanjun is old and toothless? Now that Wuhun Palace can't rashly start a war with the Haoshan sect, will it be able to start a war with the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex unscrupulously? The key is that the two parties involved actually believed it. Bibi Dong was in love at that time, were Yu Xiaogang too? However, this person's subsequent operations were even more amazing. When Bibi Dong was at the lowest point in his life, betrayed by his teacher and left by her boyfriend, he actually got together with Lu Erlong. To be honest, Su Chen admired Yu Xiaogang. This is no longer a bad hand with a good hand. He simply threw his Tianyu cards out, trampled them under his feet, crushed them to pieces, and even spat on them. Even so, Yu Xiaogang didn't think there was anything wrong with him. He still used his affectionate persona and held the 10-core competitiveness of Wuhun that he was proud of, and he did not seek the same fate with the equally pure and affectionate Tang Shenwang. And together, we meet so late. In this regard, Su Chen could only wish them well, and it was best to lock them up. Who is he? Qian Runshui on the side asked curiously when she saw Su Chen speaking. She looked at Yu Shaogang up and down, and felt that he was just an ordinary person. Feeling a little bit inexplicably confident. Him. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Su Chen's mouth. He leaned into the girl's ear and whispered something. The young man's hot breath hit her ears, making Qian Runshui's whole body feel weak. She calmed down, suppressed her shyness and did not avoid it, and a delicate blush appeared on her pretty face. But when she heard Su Chen's words, she couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes. What? Just him? The girl looked at Yu Shaogang in disbelief, but no matter how she looked, she could see something outstanding. The appearance is average, and the strength is even worse. Is Bibi Dong blind to fall in love with such a person? Humans, they always see the wrong things when they are young. Su Chen shrugged. I guess he's here to see His Majesty the Pope. I'll go ask. Did you see it wrong when you were young? The blonde girl looked at the silver-haired boy's back, wrinkled her nose, and snorted softly. That's not necessarily the case. You know me. Yu Shaogang folded his arms uneasily and looked at the smiling silver-haired boy in front of him. For some reason, the other person always gives me a weird feeling. It was as if she had stripped naked and stood in front of him, and everything was clearly seen by those black eyes. Well, I have long admired your name. Su Chen nodded and turned to look at the stunned deacon in white. It's okay. He's an acquaintance. I'll take him up. Thank you for your hard work. As the young man spoke, he flicked his fingers, and a stream of chakra containing extremely fine magic energy sank into the white-clothed deacon's body. The latter felt as if his whole body was bathed in a hot spring, and his fatigue and depression were swept away, and even the soul power became active. This was a new gameplay developed by Su Chen that day based on Tianmeng's reaction, which he called Healing Hand. The principle is that chakra itself has a healing and physical effect on living things, but it consumes a lot of money. The magical energy has been expanded at least 100 times on this basis, and even has a special effect on soul beasts. During further testing, Su Chen discovered that combining a very small amount of magical energy with chakra could not only greatly improve the effect of this healing physical therapy, but also consume less. And if you add more magical energy, the effect will naturally become stronger, but some not so good things will happen. Thinking of Bibi Dong, who was the test subject that day, with her body soaked to the skin, her pretty face flushed and almost fainting, Su Chen felt a little numb. He decided that he would never use this enhanced version of Healing Hands on others unless necessary. Or maybe it would be more appropriate to call it Painful Eagle Hand. Thank you, Lord Holy Sun, everything is for His Majesty the Pope. Is this the magical chakra spirit? It really lives up to its reputation. The deacon in white was stunned, feeling the comfortable feeling in his body. His face turned red, he patted his chest, and said excitedly. Su Chen's mouth twitched slightly, but he still responded bravely. All for His Majesty the Pope. He could even hear the girl's deliberately suppressed laughter coming from behind him. Seeing the deacon in white trotting to open the door, the young man took a deep breath and curled his lips with a hint of teasing. He looked at the girl and said, "You have to start practicing this after you go back." Impossible, too shameful. For a long while, Qian Runshui stared at her beautiful eyes and shook her head like a rattle. Then tell me whether this method is effective. You. The girl was speechless. What about adjusting working hours, adding a special reception desk for civilians and low-level soul masters, and letting Bibi Dong go out and talk every day? These things that seemed very inexplicable to her, in a short period of time, almost doubled the Pope's reputation and support among the middle and low-level soul masters. Everyone is conveying the mighty and humble name of the Pope. And this influence is still spreading with the popularity of the ceremony. Qian Runshui is not stupid. Even if she can't understand it, she still understands the significance of it. If she could achieve this level in Shui Qinghei's identity, then the matter of stealing the country would be much easier. Why is this? Qian Runshui lowered her head as if resigned to her fate, and said curiously. It's obviously just a trivial thing, but why can it have such a big effect? You must know that even if Grandpa personally preached the doctrine of angels before, there was no such enthusiastic response. You guys, your sight is too high and you are too far away from the masses. The boy shrugged. Perhaps the demand is not that high in the first place. The middle and lower level soul masters are the cornerstone of this world, and compared to titled Douluo and Soul Douluo, their appetites are much smaller, and they even only need a little more care. Over time, they will naturally become Bibi Dong's followers and the reserves of Wuhun Palace. Such people are often the most loyal vanguards and spies during conquests, and are also the staunchest backers during defeat. Oh, the girl nodded in understanding, but she felt like she understood, but she didn't seem to understand. She looked at Su Chen secretly, and couldn't help but wonder in her heart what kind of brain this guy had, how he could always think of some powerful things that they could never imagine. Okay, you go back, I'll take him up first. Su Chen patted the girl on the shoulder and said. At any other time he might have explained. But now, Su Chen just wanted to see Bibi Dong's reaction when she saw Yu Shaogang. Although in Su Chen's opinion, the Pope is now a completely different person from before. There are more and more smiles on his face, and he no longer suppresses the madness and despair. He may not be completely relieved, but he will not continue to shout about destroying the world. She obeys his arrangements every day, and her relationship with Qian Runshui is getting better and better. In short, everything is moving in a good direction. The arrival of Yu Shaogang surprised the boy, but it also made him realize a problem that he had to face. That is whether Bibi Dong really let it go. If she completely let it go and focus on her career layout, it would be the best. But if she still has feelings for Yu Shaogang. Thinking of this result, the boy narrowed his eyes, and the murderous intent in his eyes flashed. At that time, he could only force her to make this choice. Whether from the perspective of a friend or a collaborator, he could not tolerate Bibi Dong and Yu Shaogang having any contact. It's no wonder that the boy has such concerns. It's really that the reputation of the love-brain continent is too big, especially Bibi Dong as the best among them. Yu Shaogang on the side shrank his neck. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he always felt his neck was cold just now. I want to go too. The blonde girl trotted over with her long legs, her beautiful eyes glared. Don't forget, you promised to accompany me all day today. Su Chen, nothing wrong, because he was indeed in the wrong about the information yesterday, so he agreed to the girl's request. As long as it doesn't affect your arrangement there. The silver-haired boy shrugged. He was talking about Tiandu's affairs. After all, Qian Runshui's other identity now is Shui Qinghe, the highest person in charge of the Tiando team this time. Don't worry, those people are eager for me to play more outside, don't interfere with them. Qian Runshui waved her hand indifferently. She glanced at the uneasy Yu Shaogang behind her, leaned close to the boy's ear, and whispered, by the way, do you really want to take him up? Her first impression of this so-called Wuhunji theoretical master was not very good, but more curious. I was curious about how a woman as outstanding as my mother could fall for such an ordinary and inexplicably confident person. The main reason for following him was that Qian Runshui noticed that the boy's mood had changed slightly. Well, some things have to be verified sooner or later. Su Chen nodded. The competition will start tomorrow, and the subsequent plans are also very critical. Yu Shaogang came at the wrong time, but it was also the right time. Qian Runshui pursed her lips lightly, but took the boy's hand actively. Her delicate face turned slightly red, and her beautiful eyes looked at the boy seriously. Xiaochen, I believe that my mother will not let you down. The sincerity in the girl's eyes touched Su Chen's heart slightly. Perhaps, I have been labeled a little. After all, who would have thought that even the cold and arrogant Qian Runshui in the original work could become as gentle as she is now? The blonde girl frowned and looked at the boy. I always feel like you're thinking about something very rude. Nothing. Su Chen coughed dryly, turned around and asked Yu Shaogang, who was looking around, to follow him. Everything had to wait until we met. The Pope's palace. It was late at night, and only the beautiful figure on the high throne remained in the empty palace. Increase the subsidies for the Wuhun sub-palace and branch palaces, and actively recruit individual soul masters for Wuhun Awakening. The subsidies for registered soul masters also need to be increased, but they need to give priority to the Wuhun Palace when they join the company. Bibi Dong flipped through one report after another in her hand, frowning and thinking from time to time, and left a series of comments. Some of the exact information about the cultivation method can also be released, and Xiaochen's identity issue must also be finalized at this opportunity. As the competition approached, she, the Pope, had more and more things to deal with. If Su Chen hadn't proposed a series of efficient and concise ways to deal with it, I'm afraid she wouldn't have had the opportunity to go back and rest. But even so, she had to work until late at night every day. After an unknown amount of time, the thick report on the desk was finally annotated. I wonder if Xiaochen is ready. The Pope muttered, his lips curled up, thinking of someone. He felt that the fatigue in his body was relieved a little. Well, let him use that trick, healing hands, when he goes back. But I don't know what she remembered, and her pretty face flushed a little. Little fool, what kind of weird tricks are you using? The benefits of that trick to the body are very obvious, but the side effects are too embarrassing. That day, she forgot how she ran out of the underground base, and then soaked in the bathtub for an hour before she felt her limp body regain some consciousness. And that dress, it is completely unwearable. Can't think about it anymore. Shaking his head, dispelling some of the charming scenes that shouldn't have been there, the Pope stood up and stretched, showing his graceful figure perfectly, but then his mind moved, and his wine-red beautiful eyes looked at the door with some surprise. Hey, why are Xiaochen and Xiaoshui here? And this? Sensing the fluctuation of soul power that was almost dormant in the corner of memory, Bibi Dong's face changed slightly, and a dark light flashed in her eyes. Mr. Yu Xiaogang, we are here. The silver-haired boy pushed open the magnificent palace door and made a gesture of invitation. The latter swallowed his saliva, looked at the door in front of him that he had not been to for several years with trepidation, and gritted his teeth and stepped in. It's okay, I know Donger, she likes me the most, even after so many years, she can't forget me. Click, click, the footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Yu Xiaogang recalled the feeling of walking in this hall before, and he became more and more confident, even straightening his back. He took a deep breath and looked up at the highest point. Then, he was completely attracted by the beautiful figure sitting on the Pope's throne. Compared with decades ago, the immaturity has faded. But it is also more beautiful. The beauty is beyond description, not like a person in the world. The elegance is unparalleled, and the eyes are unparalleled. Yu Xiaogang swallowed his saliva, his Adam's apple rolled, and he felt his heart pounding. Donger. He stammered and opened his mouth with difficulty, but before he could speak, he saw the wine-red beautiful eyes only stayed on him for a moment, then passed him and looked behind. Xiaochen, why are you here so late? Bibi Dong smiled, with a gentleness in her eyes that Yu Xiaogang had never seen before. But this gentleness was not for herself. I went shopping with her, and then I met your acquaintance, so I brought her here. Su Chen also smiled faintly and pointed at Yu Xiaogang. He was in a good mood. Bibi Dong did not have any violent emotional fluctuations when she saw Yu Xiaogang, and even the surprise was only for a moment. This result made Su Chen very satisfied. He has been so hard recently, and he has to compete tomorrow. Hearing the boy's words, Bibi Dong frowned and looked at Qian Runshui unhappily and said, why don't you sympathize with him at all? Qian Runshui. Speaking of which, it seems that I haven't gone shopping with Xiaochen yet. You really enjoy it? The Pope thought a little sourly. No, it's me, it's obviously him. The blonde girl was immediately dumbfounded and pointed at the boy, but before she could finish speaking, she saw those burgundy eyes staring at him. Okay, it's my fault. I shouldn't have dragged him out to play alone. I'll take you with me to the head office next time, right? Qian Runshui rolled her eyes and said lazily. No nonsense. His Majesty the Pope glanced at her pretending to be majestic, but the slight panic in his eyes still revealed her innermost feelings. Hanging out as a family. Seems pretty good. It has been a long time since I left this huge cage. The Pope couldn't help but feel excited, and she began to think about the feasibility of this matter. Definitely not before and after the game. After this game, Haoshan sect will probably be very busy no matter what if they have to pay the price. Well, how about 2 months later? Or, His Majesty the Pope, we will discuss this kind of thing later. There are still guests here. The young man looked at the Pope, whose eyes were shining brightly and was deep in thought. He coughed dryly and motioned her to look ahead. The Pope was stunned, and then he remembered that there seemed to be a fourth person in the hall. The smile on Yu Xiaogang's face was almost unbearable. He suppressed his temper without interrupting, suppressed the jealousy in his eyes, and recalled the voice in his memory. Donger. Me. But before he finished speaking, he saw the Pope on the high seat waving his hand. Let's talk about anything tomorrow. We have something to discuss tonight. Then she continued to look at Qian Runshui and Su Chen, but after a moment, she seemed to remember something. Buzz. The sharp energy passed directly by Yu Xiaoging's ear, and a strand of hair was chopped into pieces in the air, leaving a thin blood mark on his face. If you dare to say those 2 words again, I will kill you. She glanced at him and then continued to look at Su Chen and Qian Runshui. The tenderness she had never seen before appeared on her beautiful face again. I don't think we have time before or after the game, otherwise we. Boom boom, 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 boom. His heart was beating violently, and fear flooded Yu Xiaoging like a tide. He was panting heavily, sweating all over his body, and his whole body seemed to be soaked in water. He trembled, raised his hand tremblingly, and touched the wound on his cheek, his eyes filled with fear. Just a little bit different. It's just a little short of my own neck. Bibi Dong really wants to kill herself. Just because you were called by your nickname. No, it's impossible. Donger is not that kind of person. There must be something wrong. He walked out with trembling steps, 1 step at a time. Etc. A cold and high-pitched voice sounded from behind, and Yu Xiaoging suddenly raised his head, with hope shining in his eyes. Just the next second, rough soul power surged in. Regardless of his screams, he tore at his body wantonly, and finally pulled out a dark metal token close to his body. Snap. Then, soul power threw him to the ground like trash. No, that's my papal decree. Yu Xiaoging's face changed drastically after he quickly touched it twice and realized what he had lost. He endured the pain and got up to grab it. However, before he could reach out his hand, he watched with splitting eyes as the papal order was instantly shattered. Yu, Peng. Before Yu Xiaoging could roar in anger, he was wrapped up in soul power and thrown directly out of the Pope's palace. The door was closed and his voice disappeared in an instant. It's so noisy. Bibi Dong gently rubbed her eyebrows, blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at Su Chen, raising a smile. Now, you're the only one with that thing. The silver-haired boy looked at the fragments on the ground in surprise. The symbol of power that symbolized the Pope's presence was the only one in his hand at this moment. This is really true. Master, don't blame me, this is what you wanted to do. Su Chen couldn't help but mourn for the poor master. Then him. Qian Runshui asked curiously, what are you going to do about it? From this point of view, it seems that the man will not give up. What a ridiculous thing. What a wishful thinking, but it actually hit me on the head. The Pope's pretty face looked slightly cold. She knew Yu Xiaoging very well, so when she saw the familiar furnishings and titles on Yu Xiaoging's body, she knew what he was planning. He had originally forgotten about it, but this man insisted on seeking death. Yu Yuanjun is still in Wuhun City, so let him live for a few more days. Once the Haoshan sect matters are over and the dust has settled, she will start to settle things one by one. Okay, let's ignore these things for now and go back to rest. Xiaochen still has to compete. Bibi Dong yawned, her beautiful eyes flashed, and she looked at the boy. By the way, Xiaochen, can you use that healing hand again? I mean the version with the lowest side effects. She didn't dare to experience the tallest one again, and even if she did, she would never let her daughter see it. Otherwise, she would really be shameless. Huh, what is that? I want it too. Qian Runshui's eyes lit up. She had been interested in this for a long time, but Su Chen had always been unwilling to use it on her, saying that it had not been fully tested. Can't I help him test it? Okay, I want everything. Su Chen nodded helplessly. Fortunately, I asked Bibi Dong to test it at that time, otherwise I would have to go to jail. By the way, who of you can still remember that I have a competition tomorrow? The boy sighed and followed the footsteps of 2 beautiful figures, one big and one small. The 3 walked out of the Pope's palace, and the crisp laughter of the girl and the woman floated far away in the night sky. At this time, at the foot of the Wuhun Palace, Yu Xiaoging leaned against the roadside in a daze. His mind was full of Bibi Dong's beautiful eyes without any emotion, and the scene of shattering the Pope's order. Thinking of this, his heart was broken. No way. Donger just threw me down. She didn't kill me, she must have me in her heart. He closed his eyes, opened them again, and clenched his fists firmly. The beautiful youthful time in his memory made Yu Shaogang forget the pain temporarily, and he couldn't help but mutter in his sleep. Donger. I will. What will you be sure of? The emotionless female voice came, and he answered subconsciously. I will definitely let you know how much I love you. Before he finished speaking, the voice stopped abruptly. Yu Shaogang's whole body was stiff, and his head slowly raised. Under the moon, the familiar red-haired woman looked at him expressionlessly. Erlong, listen to my explanation. Ah! The suppressed scream startled a group of night crows, which also floated far away in the night sky. Tonight is destined to be an uneasy night. The storm has not yet subsided, and everything has not yet surfaced. But the succession ceremony of the Pope of the Spirit Hall, which has been long expected by all parties, has quietly opened the curtain. Douluo calendar year 2631, autumn. The morning sun has not yet risen, and there is only a hint of fish belly white in the blue sky. But the plain about 40 kilometers away from Wuhan City was already crowded and lively. A venue that was nearly the size of 4 football fields was divided up by several titled Douluo and turned into dozens of huge venues. Each venue has separate viewing seats and can accommodate at least more than 40,000 people. Huge soul lighting equipment is placed all around, and the solemn silver background reflects the light, ensuring that no matter what angle you are in, you can clearly see everything on the field. It can be said that in this aspect, the magnificence of Wuhan Palace is fully demonstrated. There are quite a lot of people. Su Chen stood in the exclusive lounge, looking at the sea of people below through the glass, and couldn't help but sigh. The young man did not wear his usual training clothes today, but put on a set of clothes that Bibi Dong personally selected for him. The white outfit is embroidered with golden dragon patterns, and the logo of Wuhan Palace is embroidered on the chest. It is both noble and sassy. If they didn't know the inside story, no one would believe that he was only 6 years old. Brother, our grandpa said that this competition is strictly in accordance with the system and requirements of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Competition, and some of the specifications are even far beyond it. If it weren't for the fact that it's not easy to get here, there would be more people. It's a lot. Yin Luo rubbed his hands and looked at the young man in front of him who was almost as tall as him with a little awe. After just one day without seeing him, the latter was almost as tall as him, and the aura on his body became more unpredictable. What kind of cultivation speed is this? Yin Luo couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. The 6 of them are also among the top geniuses in Wuhan City, but in front of this person, they all look like ordinary people. That's right, otherwise why would he be the son of God? Really? Su Chen nodded. Wuhandian has no intention of reducing expenses in this regard, and even intends to make it bigger and more extensive. By the way, Yin Luo, how did you find the person I asked you to find? The boy looked back at the other team members who were sitting on the sofa adjusting their breath, and said softly. He was referring to the person who created the list of members who were a threat to the competition. Su Chen was very interested in that person's intelligence network. If the other party was willing to cooperate, he could relax a little and spread his own plan. The contact was made, but Yin Luo hesitated and said, the other party wants you to meet him alone, Your Highness, and no matter what, he is willing to give you 3 opportunities to collect information for free. It was for this reason that he had been hesitant to tell Su Chen. If something goes wrong with His Royal Highness the Holy Sun because of his news, then he will definitely be blamed for his death. What a wonderful man. Su Chen was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. Tell him for me that after the first game, let him decide the location. Interestingly, it seems that this man is smarter than he thought. The young man thought so. By completely avoiding official meetings, do you want to express that even if you cooperate, it will only be with yourself, not Wuhandian? His Royal Highness the Holy Sun must not do this. I don't know the details of that person. What if? Yin Luo was very anxious when he heard this, but before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by the young man raising his hand. It doesn't matter, I'm sure. Su Chen smiled and patted his shoulder. Thank you. Okay, now, let's concentrate on watching the opening ceremony, and also get to know our opponents. When the morning light shed its first light, this much anticipated game finally kicked off. Buzz. Amidst the brilliant flashes of light, a man and a woman flew into the sky, opened the microphones in their hands, and looked at the crowds of people with smiles on their faces. Welcome everyone to this competition. On behalf of Wuhun Palace, I would like to express my most sincere greetings to you all. The sound waves spread, and naturally, their voices reached every corner of the arena. I'm Cece. The woman smiled broadly. I am Cao Cao. The man waved. Today, we will host the game. Boom. The two of them sang together, the rhythmic drum beat sounded, and the extremely noisy crowd reached its peak at this moment. Then let's explain the rules of this game. Cece reached out and pressed down. Her gentle voice seemed to have magic power, making the noisy scene a little quieter. This competition is divided into 3 parts. First, in the indiscriminate brawl competition, 12 teams will stand on the same field and fight with each other. The final winner will successfully advance to the next stage. Second, the team that wins the brawl will fight against several outstanding teams who are also fighting against it. The winner among them can enter the final stage. Third, the final round, that is, the finals, will be decided by the 2 teams that have defeated countless teams and won to the end. Cao Cao smiled and looked at the people who were holding their breath. He stretched out his hand and pulled, and a crystal clear box appeared in the air. 3 magnificent soul bones shine brightly in it. Let's decide who owns these 3 soul bones. The Soul Master's treasure. The Soul Master's treasure, which was rarely seen in the past, now actually has 3 pieces, and they are still completely different parts. 3 pieces of Soul Master treasures made everyone crazy. They roared with red faces, wishing they could rush up and take all 3 soul bones into their arms. There is no doubt that whoever gets these 3 soul bones will be able to soar to the sky immediately. Teams that did not enter the finals do not need to be discouraged. As long as they can pass the first stage, they can get a precious training material provided by the Spirit Hall. Seeing that the emotions were almost mobilized, Cao Cao nodded with satisfaction. I have said everything according to the instructions of His Highness the Son of God. There should be no problem, right? I believe everyone can't wait, so please invite the new Pope of the Spirit Hall to announce the opening of this competition. Cece cheered, and the curtain behind him opened, and a golden VIP platform appeared in front of everyone. There were only 5 people on the VIP platform, a handsome and noble boy, a humble and elegant young man, a big man lying on his back, a frowning middle-aged man, and that peerless beauty. They are the eldest prince of the Tiando Empire, Shui Qinghe, the leader of the Qibao Luli sect, Ning Fengji, the current patriarch of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex, Yu Yuanjun, the younger brother of the emperor of the Xingluo Empire, Prince Dai Lingxiao, and the current pope of the Spirit Hall, Bibi Dong. Welcome everyone to the Spirit City to participate in this succession ceremony. Her Majesty the Pope wore a solemn robe, with a faint smile on her beautiful face. She stood up with a staff in her hand, her red lips slightly parted. I, the current Pope of the Spirit Hall, Bibi Dong, announce this succession ceremony. Start immediately. Bibi Dong's voice spread throughout the entire arena. No matter which corner, the solemn declaration of the Pope could be heard. Instantly, the applause was thunderous. Countless cheers came one after another, surging like waves. Thanks to Su Chen's marketing plan for this month, the image of His Holiness the Pope is almost perfect in the middle and lower classes of Wuhun City, and naturally, his popularity is quite high. When the applause and cheers subsided, His Holiness the Pope's beautiful wine-red eyes swept across the entire arena, lingered for a moment in a place that was barely noticeable, and then said, "All the participating geniuses, you are all geniuses from all over the world. Today, I hope you can fight with all your strength, defeat your opponents fairly, and show the style of the younger generation of our spirit world. I, Bibi Dong, the Pope of the Spirit Hall, hereby promise that all children who participate in the first stage can receive a Spirit Hall bronze commemorative badge. With this badge, as long as you help the Spirit Hall with some small commissions in your spare time, the monthly subsidy will be doubled, and you can buy various Spirit Master supplies at a permanent 20% discount. And if you participate in the second stage, you can receive a silver commemorative badge, the monthly subsidy will be doubled, and the Spirit Master supplies will be permanently 40% off. And if you can enter the final stage, whether you win or lose, you can get a gold commemorative badge, the subsidy will be quintupled, and the Spirit Master supplies will be permanently 30% off. Wow! As soon as the voice fell, it immediately set off an uproar in the venue. Countless people exclaimed, and the players participating in this game were even more ecstatic. As long as you participate in the game, the subsidy will be doubled, and the expensive Spirit Master supplies can be permanently discounted by 20%. This is a great thing for some civilian forces that are not deeply rooted. Even the Soul Master forces with a family background can't help but be happy. After all, who can dislike having too many cultivation resources? As for the small commission, they subconsciously ignored it. So generous, a small commission is nothing. Just the subsidy fee alone can't be earned back by normal commissions, okay. Teacher, did you hear that? As long as you participate, you can get a 20% discount and the subsidy will be doubled. Then I can save money to buy more co-branded figures. Chu Ruolian's eyes lit up, and she excitedly grabbed Teacher Lin's arm and shook it. I know. Teacher Lin waved his hand with a headache. How come this girl has no ambition at all? Ha, a nymphomaniac. A cold voice came from the side, and Chu Ruolian immediately exploded, glaring at the cold and beautiful blue-haired girl beside her. Shui Luyun, do you want to die? I think you are just jealous. You are a playboy, you are not worthy of being with me. I will kill you. 80% off, double the subsidy. Yu Tianxin counted on his fingers, his eyes shining, but then dimmed. But I am not a contestant. Yu Lingsheng behind him ignored his son's depression, frowned tightly, and kept thinking about the bottleneck. But after thinking about it, he felt that the spirit hall seemed to be giving benefits. This thing is nothing to the 7 major sects. It can't be really to buy the hearts of those middle and lower level soul masters, right? What's the use? What a big deal. He shrugged with emotion and didn't take it to heart. Almost all the people from the forces were thinking about the meaning of this matter, but they couldn't think of any results. In their opinion, this is useless except wasting money and resources. You are still too young. You just came to power and you want to do something to prove yourself. The high-ranking officials in the power shook their heads and whispered, showing some disdain for the young pope. But there was only one person who was different. Ning Fengji sat on the VIP platform with a gentle and easy-going smile on his face, but his eyes under the black-framed glasses were full of deep thoughts. He looked at the graceful back of the peerless beauty, and instinctively, a strong sense of vigilance emerged in his heart. The first reaction of the leader of the 7 Treasures glazed sect was no different from that of everyone else. They were all wondering whether the Pope was eager for success and did something irrational because of his hot head. But Ning Fengji soon rejected his idea. From the observations of the past few days in the city, the Pope was ambitious, bold but careful, and could never be such a fool. Why is that? Long live the Pope, and the Pope will live forever. He was thinking, but suddenly heard a hoarse shout. Before Sect Master Ning could react, shouts rang out one after another, and soon became a surging wave. Long live His Holiness the Pope! 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 Bang! Ning Fengji stood up suddenly, staring at the excited faces. Most of them were civilian forces participating in the competition. No, it should be said that most of the audience of this game were ordinary soul masters with little or shallow background. These people may not have profound strength or extraordinary talent. But there are many of them, and they come from all over the world. A terrible thought emerged from Ning Fengji's mind, making him a little dizzy and almost unable to stand steadily. He knew what the Spirit Hall wanted to do. No wonder the threshold for this competition was so low. It turned out that from the beginning, the Spirit Hall had this purpose. Master Ning, what's wrong with you? Do you need me to call a healing spirit master over? A cold and elegant voice came. Ning Fengji raised his head, and found that the other people in the VIP seats were looking at him in surprise. Only that beautiful figure, with a slightly mocking arc at the corner of her mouth, and her wine-red eyes with a smile. No, it's okay. Ning Fengji took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, forced a smile, and sat back in his seat. He looked at the woman in front of him, only to feel a chill on his back and a slight tremor in his body. If his guess is correct, then 20 years later, this continent will only have the Spirit Hall, right? Your Highness, the mission is completed, and the brothers have changed into 2 sets of clothes to ensure that no one can find any problems. In the exclusive lounge, the captain of the law enforcement team took off the civilian clothes, changed the hood, and half knelt in front of the boy respectfully. If someone can observe carefully, they can find that the person who shouted in the crowd at the beginning was him. The eyes of the law enforcement captain were full of fanaticism and admiration. If the law enforcement captain had to be loyal to the boy because of his identity before, now he is convinced and devoted. Who would have thought that this turbulent wave was caused by the boy in front of him? Thank you for your hard work. Go to the finance hall to apply. The subsidy of your team will be doubled this month. The boy smiled slightly, took out a pen and paper, and signed his name on a piece of paper. I am willing to die for your Highness. After the law enforcement captain left, Luo next to him couldn't help asking, Your Highness, why can't I understand? What's the point of doing this? This set of operations made him look completely confused. It always feels like a big deal, but Luo really can't understand it. Well, this is just the first step of a plan. The young man smiled and looked at him. Luo, what do you think is truly powerful? So far, the son of Mr. Yin has satisfied him, so Su Chen doesn't mind revealing some. Well, shock the world. Everyone knows it, everyone knows it. Luo thought about it and answered uncertainly. Then he thought about it. It seems that the Spirit Hall has achieved this goal now. Hey, are we already strong enough? Then, what if a more powerful force appears? Su Chen smiled and said, stronger than us, more powerful than the world, and more famous than everyone. How is this possible? Luo shook his head like a rattle, touched his head and laughed. Your Highness, this is impossible no matter how you think about it. Even if all 3 sects unite, they can't reach that level, right? This is what most people in the Spirit Hall think, and there is nothing wrong with this idea. The Spirit Hall has been cultivating the mainland for thousands of years to have its current status, and this pride is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. But the premise is that there is no wall hanging. Before the god King Tang, who could have thought that this force that has been passed down for thousands of years could be completely destroyed in just a few decades? Luo, I hope you understand a truth. Strong strength is a guarantee, but there will always be stronger people. The power established by power will eventually be destroyed by power. The young man shook his head, stood by the window with his hands behind his back, and said meaningfully while watching the first stage of the draw that was about to begin. The only way to be truly strong is through integration. When all the medicinal materials and soul master supplies on the continent are sold by the Spirit Hall at the lowest price, the crops are cultivated by the Spirit Hall, the schools are all attended by the Spirit Hall, and you can even see the Spirit Hall when traveling, training, getting married and having children, then it will be truly strong. Once our order is established and completely entangled with the continent, then destroying us is equivalent to destroying the entire continent. And this is just the first step. Su Chen turned his head and patted his shoulder with a warm smile on his face. Okay, go and gather the team members, the draw results are out. The silver-haired boy turned and left, leaving only Luo with a dull face. For a long while, he shivered violently, feeling cold all over, and watching the boy's back as he left, a little fear floated in his eyes. He was not stupid, and he could imagine the terrifying result with just a moment of association. According to the boy's plan, if it really came to that, even if he wanted to destroy the 2 empires, it would be easy. So scary. At this moment, Luo completely understood why such an arrogant person also praised the boy highly when he mentioned him. Fortunately, His Royal Highness the Son of God is one of us. Luo suddenly felt extremely fortunate that His Royal Highness the Son of God was on the side of the Spirit Hall. If such a person was hostile to the Spirit Hall, he couldn't believe how he would face him. Hiss. He hugged his arms and shuddered. When he thought of the consequences, Luo's back felt cold. Wait, is the result of the draw out? Patting his head, Luo hurriedly chased after him. On the field, the cheers of the audience never stopped. The noisy waves came one after another, making the team students who entered the field one by one a little nervous. Most of them were between the ages of 16 and 21, and they were all participating in such a large-scale event for the first or second time, and the competition system this time was even more crazy. Due to the large number of teams entering the field, the host did not introduce them one by one, but only mentioned a few colleges, such as the famous idol group, Tianshui College. There is no doubt that the all-beautiful girls made the atmosphere even more lively. On the contrary, the Spirit Hall team was relatively low-key. Under the leadership of Su Chen and amidst all kinds of cheers, they entered the venue slowly. But many people quickly turned their eyes to the silver-haired boy. They were all people who really wanted to participate in the competition, and they knew that this seemingly introverted guy was also in the top 10 of the threat list. Brother, they are so beautiful. Yin Luo hurriedly led the team to catch up with Su Chen. His eyes were full of love, and he stared at the beautiful girl team that kept waving to the audience without blinking, and his saliva was about to flow from his chin. Not only him, but also the other people in the team, including the girls, were staring eagerly. That's Tangshuichuan, the most famous idol group in the mainland, with 7 albums and singles. The girl who came back from the green-haired dying stamped her feet excitedly, counting the treasures like the back of her hand. As soon as she opened her mouth, the smell that made Su Chen inexplicably familiar came to her face. Stop, stop, stop. The silver-haired boy called for a stop with a headache, turned around helplessly, and looked at the group of boys and girls behind him who seemed to have seen their idols. Don't be excited, play well, and I will get you an autographed photo after the end. It really smelled strong, no need to say more. No matter which world, fans are the same. Godfather, is it true, Godfather? Hearing this, the boys and girls looked at Su Chen excitedly. But at this age, it is understandable. Su Chen nodded with a smile. Speaking of which, with his own face, it should be no problem to ask for a group photo, right? Shaking his head, the boy turned around and observed the huge competition venue. Dozens of competition venues were built around the central VIP seats to ensure that the top group of people can see the situation of any venue clearly. Because it is too big and too far, if Su Chen does not open the white eyes, he can't even see the situation of the central VIP seats, and can only vaguely see a little shadow. But he knows that Bibi Dong must be watching him. Please all participating teams, according to the number plates you draw, go to the corresponding venues in turn. Cece's sweet voice sounded in the sky, and at the same time, a special soul guide screen unfolded, and the teams belonging to the venues gradually appeared on it. As the names appeared one after another, there were waves of exclamations from time to time in the venue. Venue No. 1. Akoro Academy Team. Flame Glory Academy Team. Dimensional Warlock Academy Team. Mage Academy. Ling Shuang. Kamikaze Academy Team and Wuhun Hall Academy Team. Chapter 91. This result of the lottery can be said to be quite surprising to everyone. There is nothing to say about the other teams. Basically, all the teams with names and surnames have been assigned to separate competition venues. This can be regarded as an unspoken rule, which not only ensures that strong teams will not be hastily eliminated in this kind of melee, but also gives weak teams a certain opportunity to show off. But only the Wahundian team actually collided with the Kamikaze team, one of the Four Elements Academy, in the first round. This means that one of the two teams will be directly eliminated at the beginning. As the first scene so exciting? Then the Kamikaze team is in danger. This is the Wahundian team. HMPH, don't forget, the captain of the Wahundian team this time is a 6-year-old kid. That's what you say, but isn't that the one who is said to be both the Holy Son and a genius? Hey, even if you are a genius, you have to grow up, right? Yes, I see that the threat list is just random. How can a 6-year-old kid be in the top 10? Why should he be ranked with a group of soul sects? In the audience seats, they intensely discussed the results of the draw, but most of them were not optimistic about Wuhun Palace. This is not prejudice, but seeking truth from facts. In fact, because of Bibi Dong's recent good reputation, this is already a mercy. Otherwise, it should be said at this moment that the relationship is coming to trap teammates. His Majesty the Pope, what do you think of the outcome of this game? At the VIP seat, the relatively silent prince of the Star Luo Empire suddenly spoke and looked at the gorgeous woman in the center. The latter's face was cold, but the corners of his mouth curved slightly, and his beautiful burgundy eyes seemed to be staring at something. Hearing this, Bibi Dong turned slightly sideways, her beautiful eyes sparkling. Of course I am optimistic about my holy son. Why, does your highness have any different opinions? In the view of His Majesty the Pope, the outcome of this game, including all subsequent games, is destined. She didn't think Su Chen would lose. Of course, it doesn't matter if he loses, it's just 3 soul bones, and she will make them up for him privately. Ha, His Majesty the Pope is very confident in that little guy. Yu Yuanjun leaned on the VIP chair and let out a rough laugh, but there was an unexplainable meaning in his eyes. This kind of blind confidence is not something a pope can say. He suddenly felt that he was a little too sensitive. That little kid was so arrogant. He might not be real, but he might have been spoiled. Young people today. Yu Yuanjun glanced disdainfully at Ning Fengji, who had his head lowered and remained silent, and shook his head. Bibi Dong was arrogant and arrogant. The newly appointed master of the 7 treasures glazed sect also seemed to be a softie. He didn't know what frightened him into being like this. Looking back at my next generation, Tianxin Tianong is extremely talented, and Tianlong is the strongest in this generation. I always feel that my blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex has hope of success. I'm very optimistic about that child. Shui Qinghe showed a warm smile, picked up the teacup, took a sip, and said softly. He recalled the way he was pressed to death by the young man's big hands in the garden the day before, and a blush flashed across his handsome face. What a strange and terrifying ability. But the effect is really powerful, even my mother. He secretly glanced at the calm and charming woman. Who could have imagined that this noble and elegant His Majesty the Pope looked even more exaggerated than her last night? Well, that's it. I'd also like to see His Royal Highness the Son of God. Prince Xinglo seemed to smell the unusual flavor in the air and smiled. Snort. Yu Yuanjun snorted coldly and looked at other arenas. As each team entered and stood still, the cheers from the audience never stopped. And when the silver-haired boy led everyone from the Wahundian team into the arena, the cheers reached their peak. Everyone couldn't wait to look in another direction. There, 7 strong spirited boys and girls wearing uniforms of blue team uniforms also stepped into the ring at this moment. Kamikaze Academy. Although that is very rude, everyone knows that this battle is the home field of these 2 teams. As the 2 teams stood still, a large space became vacant around them. Although Su Chen is young and has the lowest soul power, Wuhun Palace is famous and others are not just ordinary people. Brother, what do you say, who should we fight first? Yin Luo asked quietly. He looked at the 7 figures in the distance with vigilance, his face slightly solemn. If I guessed correctly, those people had a minimum cultivation level of 35 or above. Of course, this is not the most dangerous. Yin Luo's eyes were focused on the smiling black-haired boy at the front of the group of 7. Captain Feng Xiaoyun ranks 6th on the threat list. Level, 46th level soul sect. And the one with the highest level on his side is himself, and it didn't take long for his strength to break through the 42nd level. Even though he had confidence in his elder brother, he was still feeling worried at the moment. After all, that's a soul power gap of 26th level. Well, protect yourselves and don't overturn the car. Su Chen shook his head and looked at the tall black-haired boy, who was also looking at him. Is there no one in the Wuhun Hall? After a while, he chuckled lightly, with deep disdain on his face. I sent a little brat like you here, are you even as high as my waist? As he opened his mouth, the other team members burst into laughter. Captain, don't say that. It's offensive. Ha 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 ha, I am laughing so hard that I am laughing so hard. You have to be merciful later and don't beat me until I lose my height. It's boring. Let's settle it quickly. I made an appointment with Tianshui's sister to have dinner. Hey kid. Such laughter made the other participating teams look at the silver-haired boy a little strangely, and some even laughed out loud. There was no way, even though Su Chen, who was only 6 years old, had grown up in an immortal body and was bathed in the energy of immortal arts, he was several levels higher than his peers, and was similar to some 13 or 14-year-old children. However, the youngest of these contestants is over 16, and is naturally much taller than the teenagers. Although it is not as exaggerated as Feng Xiaoyun mocked, it still exists objectively. Among such a group of people, Su Chen seemed to stand out in a sense. Yin Luo's face turned red, his aura surged all over his body, and he stared at Feng Xiaoyun. The other team members were also furious. Whether it was from the spirit hall or personally, it was absolutely impossible for them to accept the humiliation suffered by the Holy Sun. Hey, I'm so anxious. What? Did our captain say something wrong? Don't worry, little brothers, we will be merciful later. The 7 members of the Kamikaze Sentai group burst into laughter, and even the people from other teams couldn't help but laugh. If one day they have the opportunity to laugh at the Wahandian team, they will naturally not miss it. Time travel fighting Ma Hongjun, Phoenix, the originator of martial spirits. Close double angle bracket. Introduction. Good news, Ma Hongjun, a time travel fighting hero, has a girl who needs to be developed beside him. Bad news, it seems that my martial soul is not the evil fire phoenix, and I seem to be a pawn of the gods. Ma Hongjun traveled across Douluo continent and became Ma Hongjun among Shrek's 7 monsters. He thought it was a great start and he could become a god by hugging the thigh of Tang Shenwang. Who knew that his martial spirit was not an ordinary chicken turning into a phoenix, but a phoenix. Side by side with the dragon god, the phoenix, the ancestor of the enemies of the gods. Fortunately, the sky is the limit, and the infinite evolution system has arrived. You snatched the soul bone belonging to Tang San, reversed the line of fate, and was rewarded with 30 evolution points. You stole Xiao Wu, reversed the line of fate, and was rewarded with 300 evolution points. You have gained the favor of the Silver Dragon King, your destiny has been greatly reversed, and you were rewarded with 3,000 evolution points. But as he continued to destroy the plot, the entire Douluo world was ruined. In order to please you, your admirer Shui Ke launched a fight to the death between Qian Runshui and Qian Runshui. The line of fate was reversed and she was rewarded with 500 evolution points. In order to attract your attention, your secret admirer Zhu Zuqing took control of the Star Luo royal family and launched a war. The fate line was reversed, and he was rewarded with 700 evolution points. Bibi Dong. If Ma Hongjun is willing to join Wuhun Palace, he will be the next generation of holy sons. Bo Saishi. Sorry Poseidon, but I have a new god who is more worthy of belief. DTN. Although I am a dragon, I can also play a cameo as a dog occasionally. Ahem. Gods of the divine realm, please dragon god, please come back, we would rather be ruled by you. Ha 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 ha, these kids are really outspoken. Can't they be considerate of the younger generation? In the VIP seat, Yu Yuanjun leaned back in his chair and couldn't help laughing. The prince of the Xinglo Empire beside him also showed an awkward but polite smile. It was really too real. It's okay for you to attack the Spirit Hall team from other places, but the height is a different problem. The Pope's face was normal, and he didn't seem to be affected by this incident, but from the slightly condensed wine-red beautiful eyes, it can be seen that Bibi Dong was obviously aroused. And Shui Qinghe also stared at the captain of the Kamikaze Academy and memorized his appearance. Feng Xiaoyun, who was laughing wantonly, suddenly felt cold all over, as if there was an extremely powerful existence staring at him. And there was more than one. Fortunately, the weird feeling came and went quickly, only a short moment, almost making him think it was an illusion. Feng Xiaoyun didn't think about the Spirit Hall. After all, in most cases, let alone mocking students, as long as you don't point your finger at the person in power, they will basically laugh it off. That's why he dared to mock without hesitation. Feng Xiaoyun's idea was good, but unfortunately, he didn't understand what Su Chen meant to the mother and daughter of the Spirit Hall. Maybe even if he really pointed his finger at these 2 people and scolded them, they wouldn't take it seriously, but Su Chen was different. Feng Xiaoyun would never have thought that he was just mocking before the battle, but he would be targeted by the highest authority in the Spirit Hall and a future god. If he had known this earlier, he would definitely play the game honestly. Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in the world. However, at this moment, Feng Xiaoyun looked at the silver-haired boy, and the smile on his face became very forced. A little solemnity gradually emerged in his heart. As the leader of this generation of the Divine Wind Academy, Feng Xiaoyun is naturally not a spoiled person. On the contrary, he is meticulous and good at observation. Before the battle, Feng Xiaoyun conducted a comprehensive investigation of the top 20 players on the threat list. And Su Chen, the so-called holy son who was only 6 years old and suspected to have reached level 20, was naturally the focus of his attention. But after checking, Feng Xiaoyun only felt 2 words. Weird. Yes, it was weird. Whether it was the identity of the so-called research master, the soul power of level 20 at the age of 6, and the first soul ring that was suspected to be 1,000 years old, he felt a strong sense of absurdity. Is he really 6 years old? Does he really have level 20 soul power? But even if he does, so what? He is a soul master, and the gap between them can be described as a chasm. He not only has a 1,000-year soul ring, but also has 2. Where did the Wuhun Hall get the information to let such a child go to the ring? If it were an ordinary person, he would have thought that this was a show experience, in order to let other team members take him to guild. Or in other words, this is the most reasonable situation. But Feng Xiaoyun never took it lightly for a moment. He really felt that the Spirit Hall would not do such a ridiculous thing, especially after learning from his elders the true meaning of this competition. So Feng Xiaoyun began to test. As we all know, a person's mentality can also reflect a certain strength, so his ridicule was merciless. This also resonated with the audience and the contestants. The ridicule, laughter, and even humiliation were everywhere. Such an environment is almost unbearable for adults, not to mention a child. The effect is very significant. Feng Xiaoyun can clearly feel the anger of the other members of the Spirit Hall team. But only the most critical person, did not react at all. Looking at the silver-haired boy's calm appearance like the deep sea, Feng Xiaoyun's smile disappeared, and a strong fear emerged instead. Something is wrong. It's too wrong. Be careful, that kid is not simple. Feng Xiaoyun took a deep breath, his muscles tensed, his body bent slightly, and his eyes became sharper. He always felt that there would be a big change in this game. If they were really eliminated in the first round, they would not have the face to go back to see the teacher and the dean. Ha ha ha, brother, are you too sensitive? Look at that kid, isn't he afraid to even fart? Some people continued to laugh without caring, but when he saw Feng Xiaoyun's cold eyes, he immediately touched his head and stopped talking. Others saw that the captain was serious and stopped laughing. However, the expressions on their faces were still a bit contemptuous. This is the mentality that young people should have. Feng Xiaoyun was helpless, but there was nothing he could do. I just hope that guy won't be more terrifying than I imagined. Since everyone is ready, then the game begins. Cao Cao waved his hand in the sky, and the voice fell, and the atmosphere of the scene suddenly changed. Buzz, 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 buzz. In an instant, on the huge stage, various soul rings surged with light, and various martial souls appeared one after another. Several powerful auras rose into the sky, colliding with each other, and the situation became tense. Open the martial soul. Feng Xiaoyun roared, his muscles swelled, his hair sprouted, and his height increased to more than 2 meters and 5. With sharp teeth and scarlet pupils exuding a faint bloodthirsty intention, the whole person seemed to have turned into a demon wolf walking upright. The 4 best soul rings, yellow, yellow, purple, and purple, appeared in turn, showing his identity as a 4-ring soul master. Ha! The demon wolf roared low, and a strong sense of oppression spread instantly. With a sweep of the wolf's eyes, the small teams around him began to retreat in panic. There were even a few unlucky guys with poor mental quality who fell to the ground and were stepped on by their teammates, making a shrill scream. With the waves, the other members of the Kamikaze Academy team also opened their martial souls. The best soul rings instantly became the most eye-catching existence on the field. And their bodies were also instantly vacant. Let me learn from you. Along with the enthusiastic cheers of the audience, Feng Xiaoyun also felt that his blood was boiling, and his wolf eyes stared at the people in the Wuhun Hall who opened their martial souls. But when his eyes were on the silver-haired boy, he couldn't help but be a little stunned. Not only him, but even the audience was a little surprised. Because, facing this extremely powerful battle, Su Chen did not panic at all, but slowly took out one strange dagger after another from the storage soul guide. The tip of the dagger is prismatic, the handle is slender, and each one is engraved with a strange silver dragon pattern. After almost 10 daggers, the boy took off the storage soul guide on his wrist and threw it to the people in the Wuhun Hall law enforcement team off the court. This should not be considered a foul, he muttered, looking at the people on the court, and a strong fighting spirit appeared in his black eyes. Then, snap, the boy stepped lightly on the spot, and the translucent white energy surrounded him like a storm, accompanied by 2 disguised dark purple soul rings. Come on. The translucent white energy spread like a storm, and everyone present felt a strange sense of oppression, as if the soul power in the body had encountered a natural enemy. Or a higher level of being. But that's not the point. Everyone looked at the two deep purple soul rings almost blankly. For a moment, the entire audience in arena number 1 was silent. It's really the first ring in 1,000 years. I thought he was talking nonsense. No, is this really okay? Didn't the top 10 core competencies of Wuhun say that the upper limit of the first level is 420 years? This is too ridiculous. The audience was talking a lot, and the noise spread far and wide, and even the people watching the game in other venues heard some rumors. At the VIP table, Yu Yuanjun stood up suddenly, staring intently at the two purple soul rings on the young man's body. His Majesty the Pope, you really have prepared a big surprise for us. Prince Xinglo showed a forced smile, but serious looks flashed in his eyes one after another. 1,000-year soul rings are not scary. But a 6-year-old great soul master with 2,000-year soul rings is very scary. This means that the Wuhun Palace has broken the long-established rules of the Wuhun world. If such soul masters could be produced in batches. Prince Xinglo felt a chill in his heart. He suddenly began to understand why Bibi Dong would let such a child play. Win or lose, her goal has been achieved. After this game, how many forces can still move towards Hoshan sect? He is indeed a talented person, worthy of being the holy son of Wuhun Palace. Shui Qinghe clapped his hands gently, unable to hide the admiration on his face. Ha, if you know that Xiaoqin's second ring is 10,000 years, I won't scare you to death. However, how did Xiaoqin change the color of the soul ring? Even the breaths are so similar that you can't tell them at all. I knew it, I knew it. Ning Fengji murmured in despair. After everything was connected in series, the leader of the Qibao Glazed sect realized that he and others had been caught in a big net. What the future holds, he can no longer see clearly. Feng Xiaoyun's pupils shrank sharply, and he involuntarily took 2 steps back. The 46th level soul sect was frightened and couldn't believe what he saw in front of him. The same was true for his team members, who were all looking at the silver-haired boy absent-mindedly. It's actually 1,000 years, or 2. How is this possible? Listening to the sounds of swallowing saliva from other teams around him, Feng Xiaoyun's face became extremely ugly. But he was worthy of being the leader of the new generation of Kamikaze Academy. After a moment, the captain took a deep breath and quickly calmed down. Woo! The second soul ring lights up. After a wolf howl, the rest of the team members seemed to have been stimulated by something and finally recovered from that state. The second soul skill of the Gale Demonic Wolf, the Wolf King's War Roar. Dispel negative effects and reduce 30% pain for yourself and allies within range. This is a strong group buff, but it can only dispel the pressure brought by chakra. Everyone, don't be afraid. Even if he has 2,000-year soul rings, he is just a great soul master. Feng Xiaoyun shouted loudly, and sharp claws popped out from his hands. His whole body was wrapped in light blue soul power, like a demonic wolf that was ready to attack. Charge with me and behead. Perhaps it was Feng Xiaoyun's soul skills that played a role. Although the others in Shenfang Academy were still a little nervous, they still followed the training and released their soul skills. In an instant, yellow light and purple light intertwined, and a cyan arc enveloped the entire team. Under the leadership of Feng Xiaoyun, the entire team was like a sharp knife, completely tearing the field apart. Brother! Yin Luo felt the biting cold that hit her face, and she nervously wanted to block Su Chen. But remembering what the young man had said, she couldn't help but grit her teeth and growled. Open the martial spirit. The same momentum burst out, and they were well trained and only showed a slight panic before they immediately stood firm. Compared to the indomitable edge of Kamikaze Academy, the Wahandian team is much more complete. Various buff soul skills flashed one after another, and they were ready to withstand the charge. And at this moment, the silver-haired boy moved. Buzz! Weird fluctuations flashed past, and the young man's eyes instantly turned into eyes that exuded an unknown blood color. The 3 tadpole-shaped magatama were rotating, and the world in Su Chen's eyes suddenly slowed down. Faces with different expressions flashed before him, and he could even clearly see the hair flying in the air and the dust being stirred up in the air. Sharingan, 3 Magatama. This is the first time Su Chen has used the pair of blood successors that have reached the peak of the normal Sharingan after returning from the Star Forest. And this is also an opportunity for him to use that ability in advance during this time period. Call. He picked up a few kunai, as if he couldn't see the sharp knives rushing toward him, and caressed the silver dragon sigil on them. A trace of nostalgia flashed in the young man's eyes. This is my most proficient ability, Su Chen murmured, feeling the familiar yet unfamiliar atmosphere around him, with a heartfelt smile of joy on his delicate face. Whoosh! His wrist shook, and dozens of kunai flashed with cold light, scattering all over the sky. Don't avoid it, keep charging. Feng Xiaoyun, who had been staring at Su Chen, naturally noticed this scene. He roared, the third soul ring lit up, and the cyan light shined from his sharp claws. The third soul skill, Demon Wolf Gale Claw. The sharp claws slashed forward, and 3 sharp green blades headed towards the kunai, inevitably cutting it into 3 pieces. Feng Xiaoyun didn't know what Su Chen was going to do, but he would not underestimate the enemy, so he directly used one of his strongest attacks. However, what surprised the captain of Shenfeng Academy was that those strange daggers seemed to have eyes, colliding with each other in the air, and actually drew incredible arcs, dangerously destroying the 3 daggers. Avoid the sharp wind blade. Duh. The dagger fell evenly in all directions on the field, but it failed to cause any damage. Feng Xiaoyun frowned. Isn't this some kind of attack method? What's the point? The charge didn't stop. The silver-haired boy was close at hand. Feng Xiaoyun had no time to think. The green light in his hand condensed again, and the 4th soul ring showed faint signs of lighting up. No matter what the purpose was, at this distance, it was impossible for him to avoid the team's charge. What should be eliminated first? Feng Xiaoyun's eyes widened in vain. Because the young man who had been in sight disappeared so suddenly. Ah! Screams sounded from behind, and he subconsciously turned around and saw an unforgettable scene in his life. Silver light appeared from the void, and before he could see what it was, his 2 teammates screamed and fell down. The 2 soul masters were instantly killed. It was just a moment, a split second. The figure of the young man appeared from the void and disappeared, so fast that only a faint glow could be seen. And the shining silver glow was like a full moon pouring down a silk thread. Every time it flashed, a member of the Kamikaze Academy would scream and cover his neck and fall down. All of you come closer to me, back to back. Feng Xiaoyun roared heartbreakingly. What is this? What on earth is this? He looked panicked, blinking desperately, trying to catch the figure of the young man. But he still saw nothing. Nothing was clear, only saw the silver light like lightning from the corner of his eye, and then, there was the sound of screams and blood. Fast, too fast. Feng Xiaoyun felt a chill in his heart. Fear, for the first time, climbed into the eyes of the contemporary leader of the Kamikaze Academy. Captain, what should we do? What should we do? The trembling voice of the team member called Feng Xiaoyun back from his trance, and then a trembling reality was placed before his eyes. There were only 2 people leaning against him. That is to say, in just a few breaths, 4 soul masters fell into the hands of the silver-haired boy. This, Feng Xiaoyun felt as if his head was hit hard, and he felt dizzy. How is this possible? What kind of soul skill is that? We retreat back to back and leave this range first. It's okay, he shook his head, forced himself to calm down, and comforted the team members who were already scared. Although Feng Xiaoyun was also at a loss at the moment, as the captain, he must not be the first to lose his will to fight. Otherwise, this team would be completely finished. Ah! The scream interrupted Feng Xiaoyun's comforting voice, and he was so scared that he retreated reflexively, but found that it was not the Kamikaze Academy that suffered this time, but other people. And this time, he finally saw the silver figure. Whoosh! In just a breath, the silver light flickered in 3 locations more than 20 meters apart, and a lightning-shaped arc of light passed through the air, and several people fell down with their hands covering their necks and wailing. The boy's face was soaked with blood, and his scarlet eyes flashed with strange excitement. The dagger in his hand was like the scythe of the god of death, waving gracefully, harvesting one life after another like flowing water. If the people of the Kamikaze Academy at least resisted a little, then these people were like tigers entering a flock of sheep for the boy. Snap! After dozens of breaths, in the eyes of the Wuhun Hall team, the boy slowly and lightly fell to the ground, and the kunai in his hand slowly pulled out from the neck of an unlucky guy. Puff! A pool of blood spurted out, staining the boy's silver hair with a little blood. He didn't even scream, and fainted on the ring. At this point, the only people standing on the huge stage, apart from the people of the Spirit Hall, were the 3 people from the Kamikaze Academy who were trembling all over. Flying Thunder God / Su Chen's famous skill is also the origin of his title. In the ninja world, the highest level order of the major ninja villages is that if you encounter silver flashes in battle, you can directly abandon the mission. Now, in another world, the power of silver flashes has begun to show. Ha! The young man panted lightly, slowly raised his eyes, and the scarlet Magatama turned, staring at the pale Feng Xiaoyun. It's your turn. The viewing area of the number 1 stage has fallen into a dead silence abnormally. There is no other reason, it is really too shocking what happened in front of him. I don't know how long it took before someone spoke with difficulty, his voice trembling, with a bit of fear. Hey, are you kidding me? No, it's impossible. This, my God. Looking at the terrifying scene in front of them. Everyone was wondering if this was an illusion. That silver-haired boy, the one who was not favored by others and used his connections to get a gold medal. Everyone thought he was a sheep, but the next second, he became a death god holding a sickle. Is this the son of the Spirit Hall? Even if he is only level 20. Oh my God. The voice gradually disappeared. Everyone looked at each other and began to think palely whether they had laughed at him just now. Bang! In the VIP seats, the cup in front of Yu Yuanjun was crushed by his slap. He jumped to the edge of the VIP seats, his eyes full of bloodshot, staring at the boy who was slowly walking on the stage. Clear the field. In just a few minutes, more than 60 people fell into the hands of the boy. Impossible, this is impossible. The chief of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex was already filled with horror, because even he could not catch the boy's track. This is the legendary space attribute soul skill, right, His Holiness? Prince Xing Luo exhaled and asked with some difficulty. A strong fear flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he and Yu Yuanjun had the same idea in their hearts, that is, this boy must not be kept. Too dangerous. The great soul master has such a terrible space soul skill, what about the future? Is the Spirit Hall really so talented? It's not enough to have Bibi Dong, and now there is another Su Chen. A strong jealousy rose in Prince Xingluo's heart, and a cruel idea also appeared in his mind. Bibi Dong did not answer. In fact, she was also in shock. Bibi Dong had seen this space soul skill called Flying Thunder God by Su Chen before, but she never expected that this soul skill would be so terrifying. There was no delay, no pre-release swing, no traces or fluctuations. Even at present, the distance was very far. Before, she thought that the rarity of this soul skill was close to the 8th and 9th soul skills, but now it seems that it is still too conservative. Even if it is the 9th soul skill, it is absolutely impossible to reach this level. I think he also gave me a surprise. On the pretty face of His Holiness the Pope, a beautiful and thrilling smile appeared. A strong sense of pride filled her chest, making her want to hold Su Chen in her arms and rub him hard. How come this guy is getting stronger and stronger? I won't be able to catch up with him by then, will I? Shui Qinghe had an admiring look on her face, but in fact she was already so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. She secretly thought that unless she used the power of soul bones, it would be unlikely for her to get rid of all these people. Even if she used soul bones, she would never be able to do it so quickly. This kid is really scary. Ning Fengji was also terrified. As an auxiliary soul master with no combat ability, he knew the most about the horror of this ability. Maybe, that kid has the ability to kill him directly now. He exhaled deeply, looked at the noble and beautiful Pope in the front, and made a decision in his heart. His eyes returned to the field. The silver-haired boy shook the kunai in his hand and shook out a few drops of steaming blood. The indifferent smile on his face looked so terrifying to Feng Xiaoyun. You didn't kill them, right? He swallowed his saliva, looked at the students falling on the ground, and asked tremblingly. Although in the Soul Master world, the word, killing, is not far away from him, but in the final analysis, Feng Xiaoyun is still just a student. He had killed the evil Soul Master. But killing more than 60 people at once, all of whom were of the same age, was something Feng Xiaoyun couldn't even imagine. Of course not. Killing someone is against the rules. Su Chen nodded slightly. With his understanding of the structure of the human body, he naturally knows where a person can lose most of his combat ability, and if treated in time, it will not be life-threatening. Well, of course, that feeling is infinitely close to death, so it is inevitable to leave some psychological shadow. That's good, otherwise, I don't know how to fight you. A bitter smile appeared on Feng Xiaoyun's pale face. Then, he took a deep breath and looked at the silver-haired boy seriously. Those daggers, right? The captain of the Kamikaze Academy turned his eyes to the kunai shaking in Su Chen's hand. To be precise, it was the silver dragon pattern. This ability of yours cannot be transferred at will, at least, or it must be, near the dagger. So, click click click, the fourth soul ring belonging to the Gale demonic wolf shone brightly. Amidst the blood-curdling gasps and brittle bones, Feng Xiaoyun's figure underwent huge changes in vain. The muscles swelled, the claws extended again, and the height jumped to more than 3 meters, like a little giant. Call. Now, the only thing you have is the dagger in your hand, right? The huge werewolf, which was more than 3 meters tall, breathed out hot breath, its sharp claws the size of cattail leaf flashed with cold light, and the rich cyan-sharp soul power attached to it. Those scarlet wolf eyes were locked on the young man, and he slowly lowered his body into an offensive posture. Sorry, I know it's a bit mean, but I have a reason to stop them that I can't lose. Amidst the roar of wolves, the remaining 2 team members launched an attack on the rest of the Wahandian team without hesitation. Being classmates for many years has given them a great understanding. Although the other 2 people were frightened beyond words by the scene caused by Su Chen, with the blessing of Feng Xiaoyun's second soul skill, the impact was greatly eliminated. Asshole, you don't take us seriously, do you? Yin Luo and others were stunned and instantly became furious. They were still immersed in the shock of Su Chen's power and were ready to lie down and wait for the win, but they didn't expect that this would happen. At the same time, Yin Luo was also a little nervous. He had heard everything Feng Xiaoyun said. If he was really stopped by the other 2 and succeeded, he would probably have to die to apologize after it was over. Yes, most of your guesses are correct. A hint of admiration flashed in the silver-haired boy's eyes as he looked at the huge werewolf in front of him. Compared with it, Su Chen seemed extremely small. But in Feng Xiaoyun's eyes, the pressure brought by the young man not only did not decrease, but became even greater. Because even at this time, he still could not see any panic or nervousness on Su Chen's face. But, you are still wrong about one thing. The silver-haired boy smiled slightly, showing his white teeth. Buzz. He disappeared. Feng Xiaoyun's scalp was numb, and he violently pawed backwards without even thinking. Boom. The Azure Energy Group and the Wolf Claws bombarded each other, like a high-speed rotating sharp blade constantly scraping Feng Xiaoyun's wolf claws, making a harsh scream. Rasengan vs. Demon Wolf Gale Claw. Your teleportation does not rely on the dagger. The giant wolf had sweat on its forehead, struggling to resist the high-speed rotating energy ball, and said with a trembling voice. It's that mark, when. Correct answer, but unfortunately there is no reward. Su Chen nodded, and in Feng Xiaoyun's somewhat desperate eyes, his other hand also lit up with a blue light. How come you can do it with one hand? Amidst the screams, the giant wolf was hit by the Rasengan, spinning and flying out, and fell hard to the edge of the field, leaving a large human-shaped crater. He struggled twice unwillingly, but finally fainted. Feng Xiaoyun, the captain of Shenfeng Academy, was eliminated. Then do you 2 jump down by yourself, or should I help you? The young man clapped his hands and raised his eyebrows as he looked at the 2 remaining team members who were stunned. The latter 2 looked at their teammates all over the floor, and then at Feng Xiaoyun who was being dragged away by their teacher. They sighed and jumped straight down. At this point, there is only one team left in the entire arena number 1. Wahandian Academy Team. What happened on the stage happened in a flash of lightning. From the moment the 2 teams activated their martial spirits to Su Chen instantly killing the entire audience, the whole process took less than 10 minutes. The changes are so fast that many people don't even react. Congratulations to the Wahandian Academy team for winning this game with the fastest speed among all games. Cici in the sky was inexplicably shocked, but fortunately he was from the Wuhun Palace and had a certain understanding of this mysterious holy sun. So he didn't lose his composure and immediately decided the result of the game at the fastest speed. This is really terrible. That Feng Xiaoyun is really not weak, but, hey. I said it, how could the Spirit Hall make such a low-level mistake, but isn't this saint a bit too exaggerated? Awesome, I surrender, killing so many soul lords in a few breaths, is this something that a great soul master can do? Why don't you say that he is the saint son of the Spirit Hall? No matter, long live the Spirit Hall, Su Chen is awesome. His Highness the Saint Son is awesome. After a moment of silence, the fierce noise came as expected. Those individual soul masters who decided to follow Bibi Dong proudly puffed up their chests and publicized their relationship. For a while, the entire number 1 stadium was in an uproar. Everyone was either following the crowd or admiring, shouting the name of the boy. The fierce cheers even spread to other stadiums. Crack. The girl in a blue dress stood in front of an ice sculpture, making a, yeah, gesture and comforting him from time to time, I'll be done soon. By the way, does this angle make my double chin look too obvious? Chu Ruolian, you're distracted on the battlefield, are you looking for death? Before she finished her words, a cold roar came from the side. Before Chu Ruolian could talk back to Shui Luyun, the faint cheers caught her attention. When Chu Ruolian heard the content clearly, her expression changed even more. Ring number 1, is the battle over? The girl looked at the audience in astonishment. The Spirit Hall team won. This is impossible. Crack. The sharp ice flowers froze the 2 students who were preparing for a sneak attack. Shui Luyun walked over with long legs and looked at Chu Ruolian coldly, you are still distracted in the melee. If you can't do it, let me be the captain. Go away, who is distracted? I am just brewing, okay. Chu Ruolian was stunned for a moment, and looked up and down at the pretty girl with disdain. If you hadn't been so procrastinating, we would have won long ago. Shut up. Shui Luyun didn't even look at her, and another stream of water rolled up, clearing the surroundings. Why is it so fast? I want to solve it and go see him. Seeing that more and more people were surrounding her, Chu Ruolian didn't care about bickering with Shui Luyun. She stomped her feet in annoyance, and then the 4th soul ring lit up instantly. Get out of my way. Ice flowers flew, screaming continuously. Ha 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 ha, is that all? The blue-haired boy covered his face and laughed wildly. The terrifying thunderstorm covered a large area with him as the center. Countless people screamed and were hit by thunder and lightning, and fainted with white eyes. The number of students standing on the field was decreasing rapidly, and they were about to be swallowed up by the thunder and lightning. But at this moment, the arrogant expression of the blue-haired boy paused slightly, and he suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the number 1 ring. Wuhun Hall, that little brat is faster than me. Humph, Shenfang is really a bunch of trash. And you, if you weren't a bunch of trash, would I be slower than him? He looked at his teammates who dared to be angry but not speak with contempt, sneered, and the 4th soul ring suddenly lit up. You Tianlong, we are your teammates ah. In countless pairs of terrified eyes, electric snakes danced wildly and storms surged. Dear Ling, the kid from the Spirit Hall seems to have finished. Oh, brother Changkong, should we speed up as well? Otherwise, it will be embarrassing to be outdone by the kid. That's right, dear Ling. On the stage, the tall blonde boy and the black-haired girl hugged each other as if no one was around, whispering to each other, showing their affection. And whenever someone tried to get close to them, a meteor-like light wave would fall from the sky, blasting their faces black. The audience in the audience twitched their mouths and involuntarily focused their eyes on the 2 small figures in the front row. Feeling the strange looks around him, Davis really wanted to die. These 2 fools really disgraced the empire. Davis was so angry that he trembled all over and wanted to bury his head in the ground. But Zhu Zuyun hugged his arms with tears in her eyes. Brother Weiss, they are so sweet, so touching. Go away, stay away from me. Woo woo woo, Brother Weiss, bad. Shut up. Perhaps Su Chen's great display of power stimulated those students, and the first qualifying match ended quickly. When the host Cici announced the results and told them that the second stage of the competition would start in 3 days, the audience in the audience was still a little confused. Fast, too fast, and the result was unexpected to everyone. The defeat of the Kamikaze Academy was not unacceptable, but being slaughtered so one-sidedly was a little unacceptable. But that was the fact. After the game, Su Chen's name spread quickly, and because of his fighting style, a name gradually became well known. Silver Flash. At night, In Wuhan City, a public tavern, the lights were bright. The wine was splashing, everyone's faces were red, and they were chatting enthusiastically. They were naturally talking about the daytime game. As expected, the people who advanced were all familiar faces. Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus, Qibao Luli Sect, Thunder Academy, Blazing Fire Academy, Tianshui Academy, Elephant Armor Sect, etc. And the Spirit Hall. As people guessed, because of the huge gap in educational resources, there was no dark horse that broke through the siege. Although the competition system was quite favorable to them this time. But there were also many secondary colleges and sects that showed their own style and attracted a lot of attention. What's more, they were appreciated by the big forces and joined on the spot. In a sense, it was also achieved. Of course, there is no doubt that the biggest explosion point of this game was the sudden appearance of the Spirit Hall Saint Sun. As a veteran college among the four-element colleges, Shenfeng College was once considered one of the favorites to win the championship because the captain Feng Xiaoyun has become famous in recent years. Unexpectedly, the first game ended so badly. But do you think the Divine Wind Academy is weak? Even if it is not as terrifying as Yu Tianlong, it is definitely not a weak team. It is really that the Holy Sun of the Spirit Hall is too weird and strange. 2,000-year soul rings, a soul skill that can move instantly, and a blue light ball with destructive power comparable to the fourth soul skill. It is said that the creator of the threat list took back the list overnight and started to re-rank. That ability is too terrifying. I don't even know where he will come from. In the tavern, the drunk young man shook his head, thinking about the game in the daytime, and couldn't help shuddering. Silver Flash, isn't it, dazzling and terrifying? The middle-aged man next to him smiled bitterly. I originally thought it would be good if he could pass the first game, but now that I think about it, maybe he can win the championship. There's no need to be so exaggerated. Hasn't that ability been cracked? You need to rely on his special dagger. What's the name of a kunai? Someone swallowed and questioned. You lad are too behind on information. What they rely on is not the dagger, but the dragon mark. And it can be planted on you. Maybe when you fall asleep, they will come over and kill you in an instant. It's so scary, hiss. Everyone took a breath, thinking about this kind of ability sent shivers down their spines. This ability is so weird that it's almost impossible to guard against. Okay, it's not that scary. Just when they were shocked by the power of the flying thunder god, a lazy voice came from the side. When everyone heard the news, they saw a red-haired boy holding a wine glass with a disdainful smile on his face. No matter what, he is just a great soul master. Feng Xiaoyun, a loser, was too scared to fight back. As soon as these words came out, the whole tavern fell silent for a while, and countless pairs of surprised eyes came over, wanting to see who was so arrogant. But when they saw the young man's face clearly, they were shocked. It's actually him. Well, he is indeed qualified to say that, but a little too arrogant. Naturally, everyone's comments could not escape the ears of the red-haired boy. He snorted and slammed the cup on the table. HMPH, if that kid is so powerful, why not? The boy's words stopped abruptly. Because there was a hand on his shoulder. What? The clear voice with a hint of laughter rang in the ears of the red-haired boy, causing his hair to stand on end instantly. The tavern suddenly fell into a dead silence. Some drinkers stared blankly at the silver figure that suddenly appeared behind the red-haired boy, and did not even notice the hot wine dripping on their crotch. Holy Sun, you are here. This. Instantly, everyone in the tavern became excited and looked eagerly at the smiling silver-haired handsome boy. I greet you on behalf of His Holiness the Pope. Su Chen smiled and greeted, and then turned his gaze to the trembling red-haired boy in front of him. The eyes of others also turned, and seeing the latter's pale face, they suddenly felt a little gloating. I want to ask, what could be more embarrassing than being caught by the real owner just after talking big? Then, I won't bother you for now, see you next time. Quote. Su Chen nodded, grabbed the red-haired boy's shoulders, and disappeared in an instant. Wow, is this the son of the Spirit Hall? He really doesn't have any heirs at all. Everyone was in an uproar. This son of the Spirit Hall is indeed the heir personally selected by His Highness Bibi Dong, and he is also so approachable. But then again, why did Huo Lingyun say that? Is there a conflict between him and the son of the Spirit Hall? It's because of my youth and drinking a little. Ha ha ha, now there's something interesting to watch. Oh, at the top of the tavern, two figures suddenly appeared from the void. The taller one screamed and staggered, almost unable to stand. The slightly cold night wind blew over, making the red-haired boy sober up a little. He swallowed his saliva, looked at the surrounding buildings, and said in a trembling voice, "Your Highness the son of the Spirit Hall, I was just talking nonsense." "That's enough." Quote. Unexpectedly, Su Chen waved his hand to interrupt him, his clear black eyes staring at the flustered red-haired boy. "Stop acting. Huo Lingyun's personality is not so smooth." He smiled at the red-haired boy whose body was completely stiff, and tilted his head. "Didn't you ask me to meet you alone? Why, are you satisfied with your future boss?" The air suddenly fell into silence. The red-haired boy's pupils shrank sharply, and he looked at the indifferent silver-haired boy in shock. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. After a while, he smiled bitterly. How did you find out? I thought my disguise was perfect." Quote. As he spoke, the red-haired boy's figure suddenly changed, and his bones contracted in a way that made people's teeth ache. In a blink of an eye, a middle-aged man who looked a little cunning appeared in front of Su Chen. "Tisk, the world is so big that there are all kinds of things." Su Chen looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with some surprise. This should be the characteristic of his martial soul. This ability to change, in terms of appearance and breath alone, can already compete with his transformation technique. Of course, according to his observation, he should not have the ability to transform into other creatures and objects. From this point, we can also see how buggy the transformation technique, the basic three-body technique, is. Your disguise is indeed seamless. Unless you are very familiar with it, you can't see it at all. The boy shook his head. Then how did you? The middle-aged man was stunned. In fact, I didn't see it. Su Chen thought for a while and said, "I planted a mark on you 3 days ago. This time I just followed the mark and saw you become the captain of Blazing Academy by coincidence." Quote. Wait, you said you found me 3 days ago." The middle-aged man widened his eyes and said in disbelief, "That's impossible. I didn't even ask your men to contact me 3 days ago." Quote. This really shocked him. He was able to escape for so long and sell information everywhere without being liquidated. In addition to his good eyesight, he also relied on his elusive disguise ability. Relying on this, he even escaped from an impossible place. Now, this saint has already discovered me. How is that possible? Well, to be precise, it should be 5 days ago. I spent about 2 days to confirm that the dozen people who observed me were all you, and then spent a day to plant the mark on you." Quote. Su Chen smiled slightly. The disguise of the man in front of him was indeed flawless, but, under the once-evolved white eyes, most of the disguises were ineffective. After all, the direction of the soul power in each person's meridians is different, and the possibility of more than a dozen people having the same direction is too small. It is even less likely that those people are observing him. The middle-aged man swallowed his saliva, and then lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. "I surrender, Lord Saint. From now on, I will serve you, and I will send you a copy of my intelligence network and information." Quote. It's that easy. Su Chen raised his eyebrows. This intelligence dealer is not a simple person. He thought it would take some effort, but he didn't expect the other party to agree so easily. Your Highness, I'm not stupid. How can I leave a thriving tree and not hold it tightly?" Quote. As if he had sensed Su Chen's doubts, the middle-aged man chuckled and scratched his head. The life of an intelligence dealer is like dancing on a tightrope. The intelligence of small forces cannot be sold at a high price, and the intelligence of big forces can offend people if they are not careful. And the 7 major sects all have fixed sources of intelligence, so even if he wants to join, he has no chance. As for the Spirit Hall, he dared not even think about it. When he was found by Yin Luo's people, he was ecstatic, but soon calmed down and carefully sorted out the difference between joining Su Chen and the Spirit Hall. He was still hesitating, but after watching today's game, he immediately decided to stick to this thigh. "So that's it, I understand." Su Chen also quickly figured out the barrier, and immediately looked up to the middle-aged man in front of him. After all, not everyone can resolutely choose the former between a 6-year-old child and a formed behemoth. Well, Your Highness, since I am your man, can you help me talk to Tianshui College? Seeing that the silver-haired boy seemed to agree, the middle-aged man rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly, I don't know where the ranking is wrong. Chu Ruolian, the captain of the Tianshui College team, seems to have set her sights on me. As if he was afraid that the boy would be unhappy, he hurriedly said, Don't worry, I'm not willing to follow you just to help you solve your troubles. I have a top-secret message that I can use as a token of my joining the Holy Sun. Su Chen was slightly stunned, and nodded with interest. Tell me about it. The young man naturally wouldn't take this matter to heart. He could gain the loyalty of his subordinates with just one sentence, so why not? It just so happened that he had to ask Yin Luo and the others for autographed photos, so he might as well solve it all at once. He was now very interested in the top-secret message from the intelligence dealer. It shouldn't be a small matter to make this person who was free from the 7 major sects think it was a top secret, right? You may not believe it, but I guarantee it with my life, it's absolutely true. The middle-aged man looked around and took a deep breath. Have you heard of the City of Slaughter? Wuhun City, the central area of the city. Even though it was already late at night, thousands of houses in the city were brightly lit. Obviously, the melee of 100 people made everyone more enthusiastic. On the roof of the tavern, the cool night breeze blew slowly, bringing with it a faint hustle and bustle. It also lifted the boy's bangs, revealing his slightly surprised black eyes. The City of Killing. Su Chen never expected that he would be here and hear the name of this place from an information dealer. If we were to take stock of the most important areas on the Douluo continent, apart from the Ice and Fire Eyes and the Star Forest, there are only Poseidon Island and the Killing City. Bibi Dong once gained the attention of the Rakshasa god and the god of killing domain here, while King Tang Shen not only got the domain of the killing god, but also the inheritance of the Shira god. But if you think this is some kind of treasure, you are wrong. It was the most filthy area on the mainland, where countless murderous demons and evil soul masters wanted by the Empire and the Spirit Hall lived there, relying on blood from the gods to seek temporary protection. It can be said to be a paradise for those who are chaotic and disorderly, and a hell for those whose conscience is still intact. The silver-haired boy's expression was slightly serious, looking at the middle-aged man who was instinctively nervous. You go on. He was right. For Su Chen, this was indeed quite important news. If you want to send all the gods above the sky into the Earthburst star to serve as moons, you must first deal with a few troublesome guys. And it just so happens that Shira god is one of them. Compared to the angel god at the core of the Spirit Hall, the erratic Rakshasa god, and the Poseidon who was guarded by Bo Saishi, the Shira god who left his inheritance in the Killing City was relatively easy to make a fuss about. He has a relatively good understanding of the Killing City 20 years later, but he knows very little about the Killing City now. Okay. The middle-aged man swallowed. He could see that the young man was not completely unfamiliar with the Killing City. This is true. What kind of news does the next generation of Holy Son of Wuhun Palace want but cannot get? I once went there out of curiosity. After staying there for 2 days, I was so scared that I ran out. The intelligence dealer said with fear in his eyes. Endless killings, blood and corpses everywhere. Even though he didn't think he was a lawful good person, he was still disgusted by that scene and had nightmares for several days. However, perhaps it was an occupational disease of an intelligence dealer, and he felt it was a pity to leave like that. After all, I've come here already, and I won't come to this place a second time anyway. Therefore, he tried his best to successfully bribe the waiter in the Killing City. He originally wanted to get some exclusive information as a gimmick, but he didn't expect that he actually got a big one. That king of killing, actually. After a while, the information dealer who finished speaking looked at Su Chen anxiously. In fact, most of this news was speculated by him based on the existing information. Although he has a high probability of keeping it true, whether the Holy Son is willing to believe it is another matter. If Su Chen didn't believe it, then he could only do something else to please his new boss with his thick legs. I understand. In this way, when you go back, write down everything you saw and heard in the Killing City in detail and give it to me. The silver-haired boy took a deep breath and nodded. Most of the rest of the information matched what Su Chen knew, but even he, who had read the original work, didn't know the secret. If Bao Bao is true, it means that he will play a major role in dealing with Tang Chen. Okay, Your Majesty the Holy Sun, if you say that, I am considered a member of the gang. The middle-aged man nodded blankly and said with some surprise. Yes. Su Chen nodded, with a slight smile on his face. He held out his right hand. Welcome to join. This news is very important, and the intelligence dealer who can find out such secrets and still come out alive is even more important. Therefore, some construction can also start in advance. It's an honor, it's an honor. My surname is Ma. His Royal Highness the Sun can just call me Lao Ma. The information dealer Lao Ma wiped his hands excitedly and nodded hurriedly. So, what can I do to help His Highness? Continue to collect intelligence. Having said this, he scratched his head in shame. No matter how confident Lao Ma is, he would never think that he would be stronger than Wahandian in terms of intelligence capabilities. In front of this behemoth, his little stuff is no more than a little cleverness. Well, I need you to help me create an organization. The headquarters will be temporarily set up in Tiando Imperial City. I can build a branch in Star Luo Imperial City and Sodo City in advance. Su Chen pinched his chin and thought for a while. Organize. Don't we already have the Wuhun Palace, the strongest organization in the continent? Your Highness, if you wait another 20 years or so, this organization will be yours, why bother? Lao Ma was puzzled, but he nodded honestly and asked, I understand, Your Highness, so what is the name of the organization? Questioning your superior's decision is the stupidest behavior, and besides, this Holy Sun is not really a child. What someone does must have deep meaning. What's your name? A trace of long-lasting nostalgia flashed in the young man's bright black eyes, and he turned his gaze to the horizon. Lao Ma didn't know why, so he looked over and found that at some point, a hint of fish belly white had appeared in the eastern night. It was the moment of dawn. Just call it Shao. Destroy the darkness of the God realm. Bring the dawn of the dawn to the continent. Shao. Old Ma was slightly stunned, and felt a little deeply touched in his heart. It seemed that something that had long been burned out was quietly rekindled. Okay, I understand, Your Highness. He nodded heavily. Now Old Ma still has no idea what kind of storm this name will set off in the continent in the future. And no one would believe that this organization that almost completely controls the continent was founded on the roof of a tavern on a rather sloppy night. Even including the leader, there are only 2 people. An hour later, after finalizing the details with Old Ma, Su Chen gave him a large sum of money and asked him to first settle Duwudi back, and then start the next step. After the two separated, the boy walked on the way back to the garden, facing the starlight, and felt extremely excited. Shao Organization. That was the organization he liked very much when he was on Blue Star. It's just that when I personally traveled through time, I brought Nagato Yahiko and Conan back to Konoha village in advance, so this organization died in the womb. But it doesn't matter. Now, the roots of Akatsuki have been planted, and it is foreseeable that it will pierce the false glory of the God realm. It's just a matter of time. The boy was thinking about the next layout, but suddenly he sensed something and slowly stopped. He looked up, and there was a little surprise in his eyes. Because a woman suddenly blocked the boy at this moment. Her long red hair is tied into a ponytail, hanging down to her waist. She has a hot and tall figure, fair skin, beautiful appearance, and indescribable heroic spirit. She seemed to have been waiting on this road for a long time. The moment she saw the silver-haired boy, the woman's pupils slowly focused, as if she was breaking away from some deep memories. You're finally back. The slightly hoarse voice contained no emotion, and those eyes stared at Su Chen, with unspeakable complexity. Who are you? The silver-haired boy asked with some confusion. This woman looks familiar, but I really can't remember who she is. And it looked like he had been waiting here all night. That's right. Of course you won't know me. The red-haired woman laughed to herself, with deep jealousy and resentment flashing in her eyes. Why, didn't your father tell you who I am? Su Chen. My father. Wait, is this the woman Lao Su hooked up with outside? Let me go, old Su has grown up. Ahem, so what, maybe there is some misunderstanding. In this case, you and I can go home and talk to him face to face. Su Chen coughed dryly and said warmly. Since his mother passed away, Lao Su has been raising him up by himself for several years, being both a father and a mother. Everyone needs company, and since he often doesn't go home, it's normal for Lao Su to be lonely. He's not really a 6-year-old. Therefore, Su Chen didn't mind that Su Xiao was looking for a woman outside. Talk in person, haha, it's so humiliating to me, isn't it? The red-haired woman looked at Su Chen angrily, her eyes gradually filled with tears. Leaving me in the middle of the night to find her, that's it, isn't it enough? Wait, what is this and what? Su Chen looked at the collapsed woman in front of him in confusion. What on earth did old Su do to hurt someone like this? At this time, the boy finally realized something was wrong. This woman looks much younger than Lao Su. Is her father really so capable? The one you're looking for is Su Xiao, right? Su Chen asked tentatively. Who is Su Xiao? Is it Yu Xiaoging's nickname? The red-haired woman raised her head while sobbing, with confusion in her red and swollen eyes. Su Chen immediately realized, this is Lu Erlong. No wonder it looks familiar. Do you think I'm Yu Xiaoging's son? Are you mentally ill? How can Yu Xiaoging be my father? If you are mentally ill, go and get it cured, okay? Lu Erlong was instantly confused by the silver-haired boy's loud curses. In the past 2 days, she had seen the young man many times in various public places. The latter had always been gentle, calm. Coupled with his excellent talent and the nickname of Master of Theory, that's why I felt that he was a descendant of Yu Xiaoging. But he didn't expect that the young man would react so violently when he heard this. Aren't you the son of Yu Xiaoging and Bibi Dong? Lu Erlong asked anxiously. It was Su Chen's appearance that really shocked her. I'm your father. The silver-haired boy didn't want to pay attention to her, turned around and wanted to leave. Unlucky. It's really bad luck. Su Chen's long-established state of not being alarmed at all changes was almost shattered by this sentence. Su Chen finally understood where Yu Xiaoging's self-confidence came from. In Lu Erlong's eyes, is Yu Xiaoging really the most perfect man in the world? As expected of her, she was the first person to be blind in love. After all, Bibi Dong is young and ignorant, a canary in the birdcage, and it is normal for her to be deceived. What kind of man have you not seen after wandering around for so long? If you can still be so mesmerized that you can't walk, then you can only blame yourself for the consequences. Lu Erlong was dumbfounded by this sentence. No one has spoken to her like this since she was a child, let alone this sentence coming from a 6-year-old handsome boy. The sharp contrast made her feel a strong sense of absurdity, and she didn't even know how to respond for a while. I don't have a father. Wait a minute, I have something else to ask you. For a long while, Lu Erlong only had time to hold back this sentence. Su Chen, this woman really has something wrong with her brain. Then I am Yu Xiaoging's father. If you have any questions, you can ask him. The silver-haired boy waved his hand without any intention of stopping. Bang! The bricks and stones shattered. Lu Erlong gasped for breath, his chest was plump and heaving violently, and he stood in front of the young man, staring at him closely with his big eyes. Don't leave. Ruo Yoraowu's powerful aura surged out of Lu Erlong's body, faint dragon scales appeared on her snow-white skin, and a faint firelight emerged from her body. The blue electric Tyrannosaurus mutates into a fire dragon. The airflow generated by the soul power moved the bricks and stones, making the young man's robes rustle, and also lifted the silver hair on his forehead. However, facing this situation, Su Chen didn't understand. There was no wave in his bright black eyes, and he just looked at the woman in front of him quietly. Looking at those eyes, Lu Erlong felt a little frightened for some reason. This kid, what, you want to do something here? He asked calmly. Why, do you think I, a soul saint, can't help you, a great soul master? Lu Erlong snorted softly. I know you are a genius, and the teleportation technique is also difficult to deal with, but I am sure that I will keep you before you are released. Don't underestimate the soul saint. Even if your move doesn't have any preconditions, it still has soul power changes. Just listen to me for a few words. I just want to verify some things, but Bibi Dong can't see me, so. Before she finished her words, the boy raised his hand to interrupt her. No, I don't doubt it. Su Chen nodded. This is the limitation of the low soul power level. In this regard, he is holding back the Flying Thunder God. After all, theoretically speaking, this ninjutsu can only be interfered by equal spatial abilities. But high-level soul masters don't need to pay attention to these, they just need to keep an eye on the changes of themselves as the caster. But the premise is that you know Su Chen very well. After all, his ability is not only Flying Thunder God. I mean, are you sure you want to attack the current Saint Son of the Spirit Hall here? A hint of sarcasm appeared on the face of the silver-haired boy. The younger brother of the current patriarch of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex, the illegitimate daughter of Yu Luomian. Crack. The boy's words were like a bolt from the blue, making Lu Erlong dizzy. Her pretty face instantly lost color, her red lips trembled, and her beautiful eyes were full of panic and fear. You, how did you know? The biggest secret in her heart was spoken out without reservation. At this moment, Lu Erlong was completely panicked. No one knew better than her what consequences this identity would bring, especially since the person who knew the identity was still a member of the Spirit Hall. The sky is getting brighter, and the lively noise can be heard faintly. The faint smell of fireworks was revealed by the morning glow and dispersed in the wind. This city-state was about to enter a new day from last night's carnival. However, on a remote road, despite being illuminated by the warm morning sun, Lu Erlong still felt cold all over. How did you know? She tried her best to calm down, but looking into those black eyes, she still couldn't calm down. You don't have to worry about how I know. Su Chen shook his head. You only need to understand one thing, that is, the daughter of the clan leader's brother of the blue electric Tyrannosaurus intends to attack and intercept the Holy Son of the Spirit Hall. This reason is enough for us to start a war with the blue electric Tyrannosaurus. The young man said with a smile. Of course this was to scare her. Wuhun Palace had to concentrate on dealing with the Haoshan sect at the moment, so there was no time left to deal with the blue electric Tyrannosaurus. And if he really uses this excuse to go out, Lu Erlong will be directly cut into passers-by from the blue electric Tyrannosaurus tomorrow. It's just that Su Chen simply felt unhappy that this stupid woman mistook him for Yu Xiaoging's son, so he just took revenge. After the words fell, the woman staggered instantly, her pretty face was as pale as paper, and she almost fell to the ground. No. Lu Erlong looked at the silver-haired boy and kept shaking his head, with big tears falling from his beautiful eyes, and said with a trembling voice. I was wrong, I'm sorry. Although her identity is hidden from the public, as her father, Yu Luomian has never concealed this from her, and her quality of life has always been guaranteed since she was a child. Moreover, Yu Luomian also promised that as long as he did a good job in Yu Yuanzhen's ideological work, he would find a way to take her back. Therefore, for that family, that famous family on the mainland, even though Lu Erlong had never gone back, he still had a faint sense of pride. Therefore, as soon as she heard this, coupled with the young man's indifferent and terrifying eyes, her psychological defense was instantly broken. Lu Erlong did not doubt whether the young man was cheating on her, because after several days of observation, the latter definitely had this ability. Please, no, I will do anything. For a moment, she actually looked a little pitiful, looking at the young man with pleading eyes. Su Chen, why does this scene look so strange? The silver-haired boy touched his nose awkwardly. Somehow, a sentence suddenly appeared in his mind. Girl, you don't want your family to be attacked, right? Hiss. Netizens from island countries are doing a lot of harm to people. How can they still be in their minds when they are already in two different worlds? Forget it, I was kidding you. Seeing Lu Erlong being so frightened, Su Chen also lost interest, waved his hand, turned and left. I still have to plan the development of the Akatsuki organization, so I don't have time to continue playing house with this woman here. The tearful Lu Erlong was already prepared to be driven by the boy in front of him for many years, but he heard these light words. Looking at the young man's unobtrusive back, she was a little stunned for a moment. Just leave like that, thank you. Lu Erlong sniffed and stood up, looking at the young man's back with gratitude. I will definitely repay you. What a good person, even though I offended him so much. Su Chen's footsteps paused. He slowly turned around and looked at the red-haired woman with a pretty face full of gratitude and disbelief. Wait, I threatened you and then tricked you, and you still thank me. You want to repay me. If it were anyone else, Su Chen would think that was a prelude to a threat. But looking at the heartfelt gratitude and smile on Lu Erlong's face, the young man really couldn't connect the word, threat, to her. Su Chen finally saw it. This woman is really big-breasted and brainless. In a sense, she is simply more pure and single-minded than Bibi Dong back then. He couldn't bear it anymore. After all, it wasn't good to bully a serious idiot like this. What's wrong? Lu Erlong was filled with a happy smile, touched his head, and looked at the boy who stopped in confusion. Su Chen. Yes, the more I look at it, the more stupid I get. You. He looked at Lu Erlong hesitantly, and finally sighed helplessly. Go back and ask Yu Xiaoging's identity. Su Chen felt a little sorry for her, so after thinking about it, she decided to mention something. It just depends on when Lu Erlong wakes up. After saying that, the boy shook his head and left. There are also many things going on today. Bibi Dong had shown him some interesting information a few days ago, and he planned to go through all the Four Elements Academy as the Holy Son of Wuhun Palace. Let's start with Tianshui College. It just so happens that there are a lot of private matters there. Go back and ask about Yu Xiaoging's identity. Lu Erlong patted his chest for some reason, causing a thrilling ripple. Forget it, let's ask him. After all, he is a good person. Wait a minute, why did I come to him? When Su Chen returned to the garden, the sun had completely risen. Seeing that Bibi Dong was not there, the young man breathed a sigh of relief and entered the underground base. In the first game, the effect of Su Chen's move to recruit the Flying Thunder God was so good that the reputation of Wuhun Hall increased greatly. As Su Chen is Bibi Dong's famous confidant, naturally, the character that has been brewing these days has produced a very exaggerated fermentation. Now, her reputation is spreading at a crazy speed. This also caused Bibi Dong to be too excited, and even thinking back to the fanatic look of His Holiness the Pope last night, Su Chen couldn't help shuddering. This woman really has no sense of propriety now. The silver-haired boy put on a white coat, picked up a measuring cup and a test tube, and couldn't help but miss the cold Pope at that time. At least at that time, she wouldn't try to trick herself into taking a bath with her. Forget it, let's do the experiment first, and we still have to visit Tianshui College today. The boy shook his head and took out a soul bone with some pain. The experiment of the immortal mode cannot be stopped for a moment. Even if the soul bone, the only source of natural energy, cannot be abandoned, at least the consumption must be reduced. Otherwise, who can stand it? In the Tianshui College station, Teacher Lin is taking Chu Ruolian and others to review the first game in detail. It has to be said that this reflects the advantage of a big melee, that is, even the strongest team has to expose some tactics or hidden things in advance to avoid itself from turning over. And this is an absolute advantage for Tianshui College, which ranks in the middle among the strong teams. The system of 5 assistants and 2 attackers of the Qibao Luli sect team is a big threat to us. Try not to let yourself enter the opponent's rhythm. The correct solution is to clear the auxiliary soul masters as quickly as possible. Thunder College. Ha, that old guy still uses the tactics of the previous generation, just play steadily and steadily. The plump teacher circled and dotted on the blackboard, while Chu Ruoli and Shui Luyun nodded thoughtfully. Teacher, teacher. And at this moment, a female student ran in breathlessly, grabbed the door frame, and said in a panic. Someone from the Wuhun Hall is coming.